Mayor Hidalgo Faring.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem McCoy.
Present.
Councilmember Christ.
Present.
Councilmember Kalkofer.
Present.
Councilmember Marsing.
Here.
Councilmember Popkin.
Here.
Councilmember Prieto.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Great, let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with the council rules of procedure, the rules for providing public comment are as follows. Only Longmont residents and employees of the city of Longmont may speak during first call public invited to be heard. You must provide your address on the sign-up sheet before the meeting or we will not call your name. Any speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Anyone may speak on second reading or public hearing item, and you are asked to add your name to the speaker list for a specific item before the meeting. Anyone may speak during final call public invited to be heard. Members of the audience shall refrain from disruptive, vulgar, or abusive language, applause, heckling, and other actions that interfere with the orderly function of the council. We are now on to the approval of the April 28th, 2026 regular session meeting. Hold on. Councilmember Christ.
I do have one correction.
Yes.
And Don, it's at the end in the number 12 area where we're doing, well, actually after 12 where we're doing counselor comments. It was about the water board, and it says the water board adopted a response. It's actually adopted the mild response, which is actually a grade of response for them, as we'll find out later today.
Okay.
So could you add in mild?
I could, Councilmember Christ. Was that true at that time? I guess that is my
Yes.
question. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you get the page number of where it's, Don, do you know where it was at, or do you have where it's at on the?
Hold on, I will.
Okay,
It was
thank
under
you.
council comments. I think that's,
Council comments?
get there,
Okay. Okay, yeah, and that was on page 18.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, yeah, okay. And then with that, would you like to?
I will second the
Okay.
motion to adopt the council meeting.
Okay.
Meeting minutes.
Okay, so the motion has been made by Mayor Pro Tem McCoy, seconded by Councilmember Christ, to approve the April 28, 2026 regular session minutes with the amendment to Councilmember Christ's comment. Okay, and that carries unanimously. And we are now on to agenda revisions and submission of documents and motions to direct the city manager to add agenda items to future agendas. So are there any revisions?
Mayor, we did
yes.
initially, we revised this agenda to remove the conversation you just had was
Yes.
going to be on this agenda. That was moved to the pre-session, and we made a correction to ordinance numbers that nobody but the clerk's office would probably notice, but
Okay.
just for clarity.
Okay, yes. Okay, yeah, so the revised agenda was sent out last Wednesday, the 6th, with corrected ordinance numbering and removal of council retreat following follow-up item. Are there any motions to from council? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to city manager's report. Does the city manager have a report?
No report, Mayor, Council.
Great. Now let's move on to special reports and presentations. And so we are starting with a proclamation designating the week of May 10th through the 16th as National Police Week, and further designating May 15th, 2026 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in Longmont, Colorado. So I'm going to start by reading our proclamation. And if members who have presented want to come forward, come on down. So a proclamation designating the week of May 10th through the 16th, 2026 as National Police Week, and further designating May 15th, 2026 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which it falls as National Police Week, and whereas the members of the Longmont Police Department play an essential role in the safeguarding the rights and freedoms of residents of Longmont, Colorado, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the Northern Colorado Regional Police Officers Memorial Service will be held at 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, May 14th, 2026, and at the Longmont Civic Center Interior Mall. Now, therefore, I, Susie Hidalgo Faring, and the City Council of the City of Longmont call upon all citizens of Longmont and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 10th through the 16th, 2026 as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who, by their faithful and loyal devotion of their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to their community, and in doing so have established for themselves inviolable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of Longmont to observe Thursday, May 15th, 2026 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through the courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community and have become disabled in the performance of duty, and let us recognize and pay respects to the survivors of our fallen heroes. So, thank you very much. Yes. Do you want to go ahead and turn on your mic? Thank you all.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, Mayor, council members, thank you very much for having us. I'm John Garcia. I'm the Assistant Chief of our Overall Patrol Division. With me is Assistant Chief Phil Petrowski, oversees the investigations, and then really the men and women who do the real work day in and day out. The ones running towards danger, the ones handling the calls for service. Thank you. Obviously, this is a special week for our profession, where we remember and honor those that made the ultimate sacrifice in service of their community. And so I thank you for taking the time to reflect with us, to honor the risk that these officers take day in and day out, the sacrifice that they make and that their families make. So we thank you for celebrating that with us. It's a great community to work in. It's a great agency to work for. I think what makes us special, what draws a lot of us to Longmont, is the philosophy and the perspective that we have, that we are not separate from the community but members of it. And so, again, I thank you all just for your continued support for our officers. To the citizens of Longmont, I thank you for your partnership and your steadfast support of our officers. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Would you all like a picture? Yes. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Don't ask.
Ladder was safety third.
I'm gonna just squeeze
You in 10? 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Did you get what is left? Great. Thank you.
This is Friday.
Okay. Okay, and we are on to our next item, the Front Range Passenger Rail and Joint Service Update. So would like to call, oh, you're already there. You're fast. Okay, thank you, Assistant City Manager. And go ahead, yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Jen Newton, Assistant City Manager for External Services. Brandon Schaefer, the Special Advisor on Transit and Passenger Rail from OEDIT, is here this evening, as is Sal Pace, the General Manager for Front Range Passenger Rail District. So I'm going to turn that over to them. There's two back-to-back presentations, and I'll just hand it over.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for the invitation to join us. Thank you, Mayor. Before I start, this is the second time that Joint Service has come in front of the City Council here in Longmont, so thank you for letting us come back again this evening. Just want to acknowledge the leadership that your Mayor has here, and also just acknowledge that you have a really good City Manager here and a really good team supporting you all, but beyond just your city staff, the Chamber here, the Visit Longmont office, the Economic Development Partnership here, and the city also have been great stakeholders, really invested in this project, and have been stakeholders who have helped us, who have been informed, invited us to speak to their policy committees, and so just want to acknowledge a lot of work here in Longmont and the partnership for this project. What I will do is just walk you all through really quickly for about 5 minutes, just a foundational review of where we've been and where we are going before Sal Pace, the General Manager, also provides a more level, in-depth review of Front Range Passenger Rail. So just to remind you all, Joint Service is a collaborative effort across 6 different public agencies across the state of Colorado, starting with the Colorado Department of Transportation, 2 enterprises within those. We also have RTD, Front Range Passenger Rail, and the Governor's Office, really comprising all of that leadership level to really drive towards a starter service by January 1st, 2029. What are we driving for here? Is a really cost-efficient starter service that leverages existing revenue, existing infrastructure that's already been invested in and that exists today to really drive down costs, and really ensuring that we have one operator on this line, one access agreement, which, if I break it down, is a really fancy permission slip that takes years and years to get, but it says that we can put passengers on the freight line to move them to and from their destinations, and then really just one route between Denver and Fort Collins for this first phase. So this is the basics of the project before I move into some of the other foundational items as well for you all. So where have we been for the past few years? 2 years ago, almost to the day, the governor signed into law 2 new revenue streams to support passenger rail and to support transit expansion across the state of Colorado. That was Senate Bill 24-184 and Senate Bill 24-230. And then shortly thereafter, in the summer of 2024, all of the executive directors or their designees from each respective agency met for the first time to really drive for how they can advance this project and the planning for it. And then by March of 2025, they had submitted their second report to the legislature and to the governor's office, really outlining how to pay for this with existing revenue. Is there enough money for 3 or 5 daily starter service to start this round trip for? And then by the June of 2025, all of the boards across CDOT, Front Range Passenger Rail, and RTD entered into an IGA to establish what's called the Joint Service Executive Oversight Committee, really a negotiating body that comprises each of the 6 agencies and departments to negotiate with BNSF to get an access agreement to start passenger rail service from Denver to Fort Collins. And then by August of that year, shortly thereafter, BNSF flew out to Colorado and they had their first negotiation session with Sal Pace, the GM of Front Range Passenger Rail, Deborah Johnson, the GM and CEO of RTD, and Lisa Kaufman, who's the lead negotiator for this access agreement. So really a sprint to get where we are today, and even a faster sprint once the negotiations really started. These are the agreed upon characteristics of service that you see here on your screen. This comes directly out of the term sheet that BNSF and the state just entered into just 2 weeks ago, almost to the day as well, where we will have the same schedule 7 days a week. That is to say Monday through Sunday, same schedule that we have, at a maximum speed at 79 miles per hour. Now it's really important to clarify here, the train is not always going to run at 79 miles per hour. There will be a median in there somewhere. And then we have 3 daily round trips that will get us started, with new platforms adjacent to the BNSF mainline that they agreed upon and will allow the state to do. The route is going to be on RTD's B line from Denver to Westminster before transferring in Westminster to the BNSF subdivision, the Front Range sub right there. We also are contemplating 8 different station stops. On your right-hand side of the screen, you see it starts in Denver Union Station, and then it goes all the way through Fort Collins, really stopping in Westminster, Broomfield, Louisville, and then along the original Front Range passenger rail alignment from a few years ago, starting in Boulder, Longmont, Loveland, and ending in Fort Collins. The equipment, we are looking at just one revenue consist, which just means one train set that will move passengers to and from with one spare on the side. Really, BNSF has been a really strong collaborator with the state and with the negotiation team, saying that you can achieve a lower cost to your project if you also reduce the amount of train sets that you need for such a smaller, or such a, for the starter service that we have now. We are also looking at no passenger train meets for this, which just means that there will be no passenger trains that actually meet on the line. So when a train goes from Denver to Fort Collins, it's not going to see a train carrying passengers from Fort Collins down to Denver. And then also the access agreement term will be for 25 years as well. This is just showing you all and walking you through what this body already knows and a lot of the residents here in Longmont, but there have been 2 different studies that the region is really grounded in. The first being RTD's peak service feasibility study that was approved by the RTD board to study, that came out in September of 2024, where they studied 3 in and 3 out during their peak hours. And it was estimated at the time to be around $650 million if they did it alone by themselves. They were also looking at $12 to $16 million a year for the actual O&M. However, they did not include a few costs that we picked up along the way as well. The state also had to do their own financial study mandated by Senate Bill 184, which also was the revenue stream signed into law that dictated to the state and to the agencies, you need to submit a few public reports. And so our study that was submitted in March of last year that I just talked about a few slides ago also looked at 3 daily round trips from Denver to Fort Collins, and our planners and HNTB estimated this cost to be around $885 million, with $32 million year over year for maintenance and operations of that. What's really important to note is that these are studies that have been done by planners and who really know what they're doing. However, once you actually start negotiating with the host railroad themselves, this is something that the region has never truly had, which is a hard cost of the project, the capital projects, the costs, the schedule, and we are looking for our 3 daily round trips to be around $333 million. So this is just the estimate right now. This number will change as the project goes through the design phase from 30% all the way to 90% before a notice to proceed into construction. And then we are looking and estimating around $25 to $36 million year over year for operations and maintenance, split between the agencies who are comprising of the negotiation team. So split between the state, RTD, and the other enterprise at CDOT. This is our look ahead and our progress. So in February of this year, Lisa Kaufman, the lead negotiator for the access agreement negotiations, briefed all of the governing boards and executive session of the term sheet, just to bring them along and let them know that we are about to reach a critical milestone and to bring them along prior to going public. And then in March of this year and through April, we really presented and went public with the term sheet details that we hosted an online webinar for, really walking the region through this, walking everyone through what the term sheet has, and then also beginning to split out the cost of what is the project for RTD within their boundaries, and then all the way to Denver to Fort Collins as well. Following the access or the term sheet being signed, after all of the boards voted to proceed, which we should celebrate RTD's, I think it was a 14-1 vote that night, but across all the agencies, it was a 59-1 vote to appropriate the dollars for the design phase and to move into this, which is really exciting. So from April, really through the end of this year, we will proceed with not only BNSF to do the designs for the capital projects needed for that, but also work with an A&E firm, an architecture and engineering firm, to also help us build out what a station would look like here in Longmont, for example. We also anticipate starting negotiations with Amtrak as the potential operator of this service as well. So there's a lot of work coming down the pike. And then our goal really is to get an access agreement completed by mid-June. Initially, we were looking looking to get this done by December of last year, but it takes a little bit of time on this route. And then by the end of this year, what we're hoping to do is that through this design process, we can actually sync that with RTE's budget and just make sure that all of the governing boards to this project are adopting and approving the expenditures needed to actually initiate the construction of this. However, that $333 million number is going to fluctuate through this design process. So as much as I would love to find no Easter eggs in the next 8 months in this design process, there will be some that causes this to fluctuate. The goal really is to not only get an expenditure out of all of the agencies, but also to give a notice to proceed to BNSF to go into construction on their right-of-way, and then for us to also begin all of the station work outside of their right-of-way. So this is our look ahead. And that really just wraps up that timeline. Here's a more detailed look of what we're looking at. This is, if you want to join me in this work with me and Sal, we have to really get through all of the design from 60 to 90%. We have to work with the PUC here in Colorado to ensure that they are also part of this process. There's a lot of interagency collaboration at the state level that will be needed. And then really just working through and getting all the way through the notice to proceed. And then by next year, January of 27 through January of 29, doing the construction, the permitting, doing the FRA New Starts Matrix, and then on New Year's Day, I expect to see all of you here at the Longmont platform to be picked up when service starts on the 1st of 2029. This also just kind of lays out for you what our timeline is, a little bit more condensed, but April 9th, we did roll out the term sheet to the region. And then also by June 1st of this year, we are trying to lock down all of the exact mile markers for where these stations and platforms would go. So basically, here in Longmont, it's easy. It's been studied for 20 years. First in Maine is the mile marker that we want to get into the access agreement to make sure that this region knows that if and when project leadership ever were to change, we can go back and say, this is the agreed upon stop. And then by the end of this year, and then by June 15th, like I said, an ambitious goal to get the access agreement done, but simultaneously, we've been doing the underlying access agreement writing during this entire process. And then by the end of this year, just voting to proceed to go into construction. So that is the foundational overview for you all to kind of ground you in the work that has been done before turning it over to Sal to walk you all through what Front Range Passenger Rail is envisioning for their local return program shall they go to the ballot this year. So I'll turn over to Sal.
Let me just.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, City Council. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Sal Pace, and I'm the General Manager of the Front Range Passenger Rail District. And I don't want to start without recognizing our board member and true hero for passenger rail service, and that's Joan Peck. And I honestly believe that we would not be where we are today without Joan's leadership. And that's going to mean a lot, not just for Longmont, but also the whole state of Colorado. So it's an honor to have her as one of my bosses at the Front Range Passenger Rail District. So Colorado Connector is going to be the intercity passenger rail service from ultimately from state line to state line. To understand the difference between joint service and full intercity rail, there is a legal distinction in so much as RTD is putting in the money that you paid in towards fast tracks into the joint service agreement, and the term sheet that was signed 2 weeks ago, RTD is taking money from their Fast Tracks account to start the 3 daily round trips. Now, I think we all agree it's awesome that they're putting up money, and it's awesome there's going to be some service, but from a operational standpoint, in order to build it out to something that's robust and across state line, we're going to have the Colorado Connector going from Fort Collins all the way to Pueblo in our initial 5 phases, but ultimately we want to get to New Mexico and to Cheyenne. And so it's really a unique approach to delivering passenger rail. And Brendan touched on this, but what we're doing in Colorado, especially with joint service, has not been done before in other states, where typically a state says they want passenger rail service, and they go to Amtrak and they use authorities under the Surface Transportation Act called 209 authority, and they essentially can force their way onto the private freight lines. We did something different in Colorado where we went straight to the private freight industry, and we negotiated directly with them. And then ultimately, the freight industry is going to be contracting with Amtrak to deliver the service. So we started from the very beginning with a partnership with the freight industry and turned the traditional model upside down and made them a business partner with them so that we can help get this accomplished and not have some of the delays that you've seen in other states with passenger rail. So Colorado Connector, as I mentioned, is the train. It was voted on by the name was voted on by over 25,000 Colorado residents. It eked out FRED, which would have been Front Range Express Destinations. But Colorado Connector is COCO for short. The Front Range Passenger Rail District is the governing authority. It's a Title 32 special district, like so many other Title 32 special districts that exist for a specific purpose and has specific constituents. In this case, the residents here in Longmont are part of the Front Range Passenger Rail District, and that is why Joan Peck is one of several board members representing this area of the state. We are empowered to refer a tax question for voter approval to plan, finance, construct, and operate intercity passenger rail. Intercity passenger rail is not commuter service by definition under Federal Railroad Administration. It is meant to move people longer distances with fewer stops versus commuter service. Phase one of Front Range Passenger Rail, as far as delivery, although it's legally a separate entity and it's coming from RTD dollars, ultimately we think when we pass Colorado Connector, it'll be a seamless transition from just joint service to the full build out. So phase one, the funding has already secured with RTD and 2 state enterprises. And just so folks in Longmont know, those state enterprise dollars are coming from revenue sources that are paid statewide. So I'm a resident of Pueblo. I rented a van this last weekend for an Ultimate Frisbee tournament for a team I coach of high school kids. I paid a fee on my van rental, and that's going to deliver service to the Northwest Corridor. So statewide, people are participating to deliver service to fix this unfulfilled promise. Phase two, when we pass a ballot measure across the district, will extend service from Fort Collins to Pueblo and completing station build out along the corridor, and we'll have service to all of the stations in the corridor within 5.5 years. You just heard about joint service from Brendan. Full service overview. In addition to joint service, you'll be have the ability to travel past Denver and to the new Mile High Stadium and on to Littleton, Sterling Ranch, Colorado Springs, Pueblo. And as I said, it's a different approach of doing business where we're working directly with the freight railroads. No need for right-of-way acquisition, no needs for eminent domain and condemnation. If you hear about California high-speed rail, most of that money is going to try to acquire property. We don't have to do any of that. All the property's there. We are a tenant with a landlord who is working with us and excited to work with us. We're going to speed up their tracks. So I think there's a lot of intuition as why we need some passenger service in Colorado, passenger train service. In the Denver metro region, people are losing almost 2 full work weeks a year stuck in traffic. A tractor trailer goes off the highway and there's no alternatives. Fuel is wasted. 20 gallons a year now in the Denver metro. This is just from being stuck in traffic. That costs a lot of money, especially with increasing gas prices. Estimated at 2024 at $1,700. I'm sure it's twice as much now. And also the characteristic of service. This is not going to be a traditional commuter train with stiff seats. We're talking about cafe cars, restrooms, reclining seats, and a more comfortable ride, a ride where you can bring your bike and put it on the train. So across the U.S., we have seen good success with intercity passenger rail. In fact, the most recent service that was brought on across the country, developed by the Southern Rail Commission, brought a train into the Gulf Coast, into New Orleans, and they've well exceeded their expectations for ridership. So while we've seen some commuter services go down across the country, we have seen intercity passenger rail continue to have a new robust service. So we're looking at special event stops such as Bronco Stadium, which is on the consolidated main line, so we won't have to reroute the train. The train will stop right next to the Burnham Yard, the old Union Pacific line. We're looking at a couple other special event stops as well, such as the Denver Summit Women's Pro Soccer Stadium, which is right on the consolidated main line, as well as the Air Force Academy. So local return, and this is why we're here today. And I know you have a resolution before you on consent. The proposal, if we pass Front Range Passenger Rail, if we pass COCO at the ballot in 2026, is we want to send dollars back to local cities. In the case of this community, we're proposing to send $75 million back over a 25-year period. And in addition, for today, simply saying that the station description that is before you in the packet is a good description. We're proposing that communities that do that could receive an extra 10, or will receive an extra 10% or $7.5 million simply for passing the resolution. The reason we wanted to do this was we didn't want a situation where if we refer a ballot measure and it's October and someone from Longmont sees some description of their station and the city councilor said, I didn't know anything about that. We want everyone to be bought in and be a part of it. So we've worked really closely with your staff, with your city manager, Harold, who's probably the best city manager in the state, and worked on designing language and also a sketch of the station area map. A little bit about the funds. You are not tied into receiving the funds right now. These will be done after we pass a ballot measure with an IGA between the communities. The funds will be used for improving station and station areas, so that can be local connections, first mile, last mile, sidewalks, bike access, trails, parks, etc. We don't want to tell local communities what their station area should look and operate like. I believe that communities can do a better job than a 13-county special district of figuring out how to do a multimodal hub in their downtown. And so it's taking a responsibility off of the district and handing it over to the community and providing the funds to do it. I love these two pictures of Denver Union Station as an example of what was and what is now. And this is a picture of Denver Union Station about 20 years ago, and probably none of you saw it because no one wanted to go in there. And the bottom picture is what Denver Union Station is today. It is a vibrant, activated economic hub, and that is the vision for all the stations, in my mind, up and down the Front Range. I think that the train service will be transformative, but I honestly believe that the anchor of the station can be even more transformative if the communities take this opportunity, and obviously this community has. So with the focus on First and Main and the DOLA grant that was received to help activate that area, the adjacent Front Range Community College campus and expansion, as well as a connection to BRT and the TOD adjacencies planned. Longmont has really put together a wonderful plan, and we think that upon passing Front Range Passenger Rail, although a separate legal entity, RTD, is paying for the starter service, what Front Range Passenger Rail will do will deliver the $82.5 million to Longmont to work on the station area. And we've already passed a resolution ourselves to codify this at the district, as well as moving from 3 round trips to 10 round trips. So that will ultimately be 20 trains a day going through Longmont and at the station. And these models have already been modeled out with the freight railroad at the table. So we're looking at a ballot question. We have till August to decide. Director Peck, among 16 of her colleagues, will be determining whether or not to refer a ballot measure. And if we do, we're excited to promote the Longmont vision for a station area plan. Happy to take any questions or follow whatever process. Okay. And if they're hard questions, Brandon will answer.
Okay, great. Do we have any questions from council? Councilmember Christ.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Pace, you can certainly compliment our city manager more because he is fabulous.
He is.
So I'm a little concerned that we're thinking about this in the same way that we thought about fast tracks. But you did say something that made it a bit different in that we're doing an city passenger rail, which is different than commuter rail. So actually, this is taking the dollars that we had spent into fast tracks and using it on a different type of service. And so 2 years ago, I was the vice chair on the transportation board, so I have a little bit more information about how long it will take at 79 miles an hour. And we really think it might take about an hour and a half to get down to Denver from Longmont. So I'm feeling like this is more like the train to Glenwood or the Durango Silverton, where you're actually taking it to take a train ride. You know, it took 6 hours, I think, to get to Glenwood, or 3 hours to drive, you know, but you're enjoying the scenery, you're not having to watch the traffic, it's an experience, that type of thing. But don't know that this is what you take when you want to get to work. Am I correct in saying that?
Intercity passenger rail is not intended to be commuter rail. In this case, we have added additional stops that normally you would not have on intercity passenger rail as part of trying to fulfill the mission of Beeline and Fast Tracks. I pulled up this slide here on travel time. As far as total travel time, it's 1 hour and 40 minutes, and that is from Fort Collins to Denver. So it will be less than that from Longmont to Denver. And Brandon might want to.
Yeah. And did you
And
turn
is
on your
that
mic
an
if you wanna-
assurance? Can we count on you to assure us that it will be less than that?
I like your hard language. Can we count on you? What we would say is in the term sheet. So, and what's anticipated right now is an agreed upon schedule with BNSF that is subject to operator testing, and we can't do that testing until we make those improvements on their main line. So right now, the first southbound train in the morning is contemplated to leave here in Longmont at 7:06. Get folks to Boulder by 7:20, but really looking at 7:06 a.m. and then into Denver by 8:15 in the morning. Now, this is subject to testing. Once the operator does the test runs, we will have a better timetable to show the public, but right now we are looking at a 108 total minute pure runtime for this service. So obviously, if you're at the terminus in Fort Collins, it's going to take a little bit longer to get down to Denver, but what we would also just say is what you're getting on the train is the opportunity to not only bring out your laptop and work before you get to the office, but you're also not having to think about traffic on US 36, on 287, on I-25. It's a different experience that gives you, I think, a Coloradan more leisure way to get to and from work. As the service gets we are starting with 3 daily round trips. So Longmont would see the train 6 times a day because it's coming in the morning, in the afternoon, and evening. If the Front Range Passenger Rail Board were to refer a ballot initiative, that board would consider how many additional round trips to go to the ballot with, and you would see more time options slated into that schedule. So it will become, over time, shall the board go to the voters, you would have more scheduled options in there, but I would say it's a little bit different. And I think it is different than a trip from Denver to Glenwood Springs, a bit more different here.
If I could add just 2 other points. In the term sheet, it is contemplated that there is a 50% bonus to, up to 50% bonus to BNSF for on-time performance. And so they're heavily incentivized for managing the trains in a way to deliver on time and not be lagging behind like you often see on the long-distance Amtrak routes. The other thing I just want to mention is I think so many passenger rail projects in the U.S. have failed because they've tried to be too big, and they've tried to be a pie-in-the-sky concept, like California High-Speed Rail. Our intention is to be comparable to driving, but we're not trying to bite off more than we can chew. Our first focus is on delivery in a product that is capable of being delivered, that is pragmatic, that is well studied, as opposed to promising too much.
So there's Wi-Fi on the train?
We have not started that negotiation with an operator, but we will try to ensure we have that on there.
Okay. So just arrive in your pajamas, and then, you can have your coffee and get dressed and put on your makeup, and then maybe you'll be there, right?
Come as you are, counselor.
Yeah. You haven't seen me at 6 a.m. when I do get up. So, the thing is, what I haven't heard a lot of data about is there a demand for this type of service? What would set this apart from, say, the Mustang, which we can catch at the mobility hub and get down to Denver in 40 minutes at Union Station, which is beautiful. I'll say that maybe for the 1920s, it was, that original picture was what was beautiful back then. But yeah, it's gorgeous now. So
a couple responses to that. The ski train from Denver Union Station to Winter Park is $9 to start, a single ticket to the ski mountain. It was at 80% capacity, and the state was doing just weekends, and then the state increased the service, and it remained at 80% capacity. So with increased service, the capacity or the ridership increased as well, showing that there's consistent interest in trying to use that service. So there is a demand for that type of service. As far as busting, and busting is an example that people are interested in using alternative forms of transportation. Busting still relies on going on the roads. And, when there's a major car wreck or terrible weather, you're still dealing with the same roads that you have to in the car. But this is going to be a much more comfortable ride than busting.
Well, I don't know. Have you ridden Mustang? It's pretty
I
luxe.
sure have.
And it does have Wi-Fi, I'm just saying. So here's the thing. This isn't commuter service. It's a different type of service. But we're taking the taxes that we paid for commuter service, and you want us to repurpose them on a different project. We're in, I would have to look at my other counselor here to give me the data where we are now and how much we have paid into Fast Tracks. I think when we were at Commuting Solutions, it was $103 million at that time. So it's more than that now into that fund. And so how are we being responsible to taxpayers if we take that money and repurpose it on a different project after all these years of paying in, and they still don't get a light rail, which, okay, but can we at least think of some new technology or some other way that would be better than bus staying? You know, I feel like our thinking is we're so wanting to launch that we're not thinking about what we're providing and to who, and will that be satisfactory to them, especially as much money as they put into it.
Thank you, Counselor, for your question. I would reframe this as many communities from Denver to Longmont here have paid into RTD's Fast Tracks program. That money has sat in a bank account. The RTD board in a previous decade created the Fast Tracks Internal Savings Account, or FISA, and has made appropriations to that savings account for this kind of project. My slide that I showed you with those the two previous studies, RTD's fees of I can't speak right now, their Fast Tracks Peak Service Feasibility Study estimated that it would cost them alone $650 million to do that, and they have an estimated date between 2045 to 2050 to complete that project on their own. And so the state legislature really saw this problem where RTD has a line from Denver to Longmont that's not been fully fulfilled, and at the same time, a few years prior, stood up Front Range Passenger Rail District that also would need to go through those communities and collect a sales tax. And so what we are doing is saying, here's a new project where we have 6 public agencies and departments working in tandem together to create a project that is on a more expedited timeline. And I would also say that this has been studied for 20 plus years. And so I think we are in a position to move this project forward. And also the RTD board appropriated $5.58 million of the tax funds that they've collected in FISA for this design phase to really refine the cost estimates and actually get to a number that they feel comfortable with, and also the state feels comfortable with providing those dollars for. And so I think it's not a question of commuter rail versus intercity passenger rail. I think we're starting with a starter service of 3 daily round trips. The more, if we were to go to if Front Range Passenger Rail went to the ballot, they will collect a new sales tax that would increase the frequency, where you would have more than 3 round trips a day, and where it would become something that people could use more and more frequently to get to and from. The other thing that I would just kind of rebuff is that more transit, I don't want to pit busting against this, is more transit is good. People have seen exponential ridership and busting, and here in Longmont too, that the service is provided to to this community, but adding more is not a net negative at this point, as well as just providing another option for people to get to and from where they want to go. So I would just put that out there as well.
What is the price per ride on this service?
We don't have a cost yet. So we are got a term sheet signed. We have an access agreement to get to, and then simultaneously throughout all of this design work, we have to negotiate with an operator for the service alone. The principals of joint service have looked at RTD's most expensive ticket within their network from Denver to the airport is around $10. And so there is a price sensitivity that's been acknowledged by the leadership team to keep prices within current boundaries and current expectations of what people use. But I don't think we're at a point yet to know what the ticket price would be. We're studying what ridership modeling would be at 15 cents, 19 cents, and 25 cents a mile to really see how does that pan out with ridership. Obviously, the state used $184 to bring down and invest in Winter Park ski tickets, and we saw a 153% increase in ridership over 1 year alone. And even this most recent winter season, where we didn't have a lot of great snow, we still saw an increase in ridership to and from Winter Park. And so taking that model, we know that if the service is affordable, Coloradans will use it and take that into account.
Thank you. It was amazing how fast you can talk about that. Okay, so we had a failure to launch with Fast Tracks. This is something we can launch, is what you're saying. But I do feel like we're a little caught up in just getting it launched and not asking the tough questions. Back 20-some years ago, I guess it's almost getting
2004.
oh my gosh, okay. My profession felt that Fast Tracks was not financially viable and not well thought out enough. And honestly, I find that I feel the same about this, in that I need more finite answers before I would commit that money to this project. So I would like to see more. I mean, I think I would actually ride the train down to Pueblo and to further distances. But I don't see that I can repurpose the money we spent for this project. Thank you.
That is time, yes. Would you like to respond or add some further detail? Are you good? Okay, so you get unlimited time. Well, I do want to give other council members opportunity to ask their questions. Councilmember Marcin.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the presentation, and thank you, Sal, and your team for what I thought was a pretty productive conversation in the last little bit. I will pick up a little bit with Councilmember Chris left off. I was, a little different take. I was 9 years old when, in 2004, John Hickenlooper got on my television and told me that I was going to get to ride a very fast train all the way from my home in Longmont to downtown Denver. And 9-year-old me was very, very excited. Today, 22 years later, I'm in my 30s, I have 3 kids, and I have 0 trains. Yeah, a couple more. They're coming in occasionally. I really want to compliment you and your team because I see FRPR, and there's been some confusion about where I am in the community on this. I want to be very, very clear. I see FRPR, especially joint service, I would say it's a miracle of public negotiation, but that would discount the years of work that's gone in to get us where we are today on the joint service side. I will run to that first train that is there at First and Main. I am really, really excited about where we are because this, and if you ask any of our residents, or anybody up here who maybe has talked to a lot of our residents about what gets Longmont residents fired up, it is the 2 decades of failed promises, misdirection, and heartbreak, honestly, and frankly, feeling disregarded in this conversation as a community, to the point that it becomes a joke with Kyle Clark on 9 News about will we ever get our train. Folks are angry about it, and rightfully so. And I think what you've done and what I want to compliment you and your team on is, especially as this has evolved, and former Mayor Peck absolutely is a key driver of this, is saying Longmont's going to be a part of this conversation. You're here first tonight as part of this, and I want to thank you for that wholeheartedly. I do have a question, and it's maybe a question more for our staff than it is for you, or maybe Sal, you can speak to it to some degree, but they're different conversations, right? Because we're talking about FRPR, different district, all aboard joint service. I have a question about the longer term future of FRPR and specifically how it interplays with Fast Tracks long term. Because we're talking about a situation, theoretically, where potentially we're dealing with a lot of old Fast Tracks money still being worked into the system even after 2029, let's say a ballot measure gets passed, when FRPRD is adopted, right? And maybe this is a question, and maybe it's more just setting the table as a policy discussion about whether or not it's possible for us in the future to look at saying, hey, can we start to wind down some of the older dollars that are being put into the Fast Track system once we're up and running? And that's more of a me like, hey, how do we advocate for working people to make sure we're reducing the burden as much as we can and getting our train, which I think is the best of both worlds here. So that's my only thought and question, and I'll throw it out to either Harold or Sal or anybody who wants to comment on it or answer it.
You can go.
Oh, wow. There's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah,
So
And
obviously,
that was a 4-minute question, by the way.
yeah.
I'm done. That's all I had. So
So I think part of it, from my perspective, there's different components in this, and separate ballot initiative that was passed, and we've had some conversations with councils in the past where that is a completely different process that would have to be run through RTD to evaluate. So park that over here. I think inherently what's involved in this conversation is what they're negotiating now in terms of what is FRPR going to look like, and continuing the negotiations with RTD to see how do they fit into this long term. Because what's really happening right now is they're fundamentally funding the portion from Denver to Longmont, which is then allowing the other agencies to come in and provide that other gap. So I think that's what they're going to need to be negotiating long term in terms of what is that future and how does RTD play in it? Do they play in it? What does it look like? But I think that's the work that they're doing right now and what they have to do in ongoing months and into the future.
So the intention is, if we pass at the ballot for Colorado Connector, that the Front Range Passenger Rail District will be responsible for operations of this train line, including the portion that RTD is putting in roughly $150 million for. That said, we are counting on RTD to put in 1/3 of the operating costs for the first 3 trains in perpetuity. And that's in the range of $10 to $15 million that we are counting on RTD to put in. But beyond that, as far as managing the intercity passenger rail service from Pueblo to Fort Collins, that will be the sole responsibility of the district, and we will be contracting with the freight railroad. So it's a different model than what RTD did, which was build and operate themselves. And so I think there's a lot more certainty in our cost estimates working with a business partner with the private freight industry.
So I think to add to what he's saying is, so if they're taking, would you say 10 to 15 million from RTD on an annual operating basis, then that's factoring into their overall cost structure in terms of what does it cost to get from Longmont to Pueblo. And so it's that overall pro forma where they're bringing the money in from RTD, but it's going into the total operating cost. So it's playing into the system. They just need to build a pro forma to show what that's going to look like. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kalkofer.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for the presentation. I do really love this slide. I hope you all send the presentation because I kind of want to steal this. This is the beautiful painting of Longmont. As somebody who used to travel to Denver twice a week for work, I can tell you that it's anywhere from 50 minutes to 1 hour and 20 minutes for me to get to basically Coors Field from here, hitting every single light leaving Longmont. It must be on purpose. What I can also tell you is once I'm in Denver, it costs me $20 a day to park in Denver. So for me, this is a heck yes. I would be taking the train every single time I go to work because, one, I don't have that fatigue from driving in traffic, white knuckling on I-25, sometimes going 75, but most of the time going 45 because there's gridlock that starts basically right after Longmont when you get into the next towns over, Erie. So I think this is a fast train. 79 miles an hour is fast compared to what I would be driving on I-25. And I've been in so many meetings where I've been seeing the progress move on, where before with Fast Track, I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I do see the light at the end of this tunnel, and I feel like it's fast approaching because of all the work that's going into this and the money that RTD is committing to putting into this service. Yes, we did have to wait 20 years, and I moved here in 2008, and I thought in 2012 I was going to start riding the train, 2015, but it hasn't happened, and now it is going to happen. And when I see this, it reminds me of the Sound Transit in Washington, and that has been a great success with partnerships with BNSF, who this is who we're going to be working with, and Amtrak, who we're also going to be working with. And that is a great success story, and they're starting to increase service on that network as well. Seattle is starting to increase their trains, and they also just built a train over a floating bridge, which is amazing. So I see momentum in Front Range Passenger Rail, and I think that the starter service, people are going to love it so much that it's going to continue to grow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So there was no question in there. Okay, sounds good. Like waiting for the question.
The answer is yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Councilmember Popkin.
Well, some of us have questions. Thank you for the presentation and the thoughtful discussion already. I was just hoping first you could elaborate on the Amtrak piece of this, because I've only heard that fairly recently, that's considered part of this potential partnership. I know that negotiations are in the works, perhaps, but I was just wondering if there's any more you could share about kind of where that came from and kind of where you see that headed. people are familiar with Amtrak. They've been a train operator in this country for many, many years, and including in this state. And so that's something that's familiar, and I would love to learn more.
Well, on joint service with the term sheet with BNSF, where we're contracting with BNSF, BNSF specifically said the only operator they would work with is Amtrak. Okay. I think it's yet to be determined long-term how the equipment, trains, and tickets will be branded. The service will definitely be called Colorado Connector, but Amtrak has the most extensive history of working on the Class 1 freight railroad lines. We have not, for the full line, we have not signed any arrangements yet with Amtrak for the full service, but we know how it's going to go for starter service. So I'd have a pretty good guess how it would go for the rest of it.
Great. And Amtrak runs the ski train already, and is that a shared line with the freight rail too? So this is a somewhat proven model already. So that's great to hear. Sal, you also spoke to the local return approach, and I think that's a novel way of thinking about this, commendably so. And so I was wondering if you could just clarify a little bit more kind of what the intent there and how that's supposed to work, especially that 10% bonus. Is that an annual, upfront? How does that work? And are there strings attached to that in terms of what we can spend it on?
So the vision of local return, actually, Sound Transit was one of the agencies that we looked at, where they actually executed dollars to the local communities for developing their own stations. It was best practices also utilized in Los Angeles as well. And as we were researching how do we want to develop the stations, it occurred to us that if the local communities have ownership over them, not just financially, but emotionally, that the stations are going to be the type of stations that you want them to be. They're going to be that lower photo of the Denver Union Station. And we're in the business right now of building and operating a train service. But I think that we want these stations to be anchors for economic activity, for TODs, for multimodal, for biking, for walkability, for the community college. And there's no way that a big, huge, almost statewide district is going to do justice in each local community. So this is actually an option, not a requirement. And the local return is based on population, and so that's why Longmont qualifies for the $75 million. The additional 10% would be annually on top of that. That's simply for passing the narrative that says this is the narrative for our station. Again, that's so that when if we're campaigning in a few months, we're not pushing anything that people haven't signed off on.
Sure.
And as far as what the money can be used for, at this point we have broad criteria that include multimodal, et cetera, walkability, the hall, all the items that I went through. The final determination will be an IGA between the city and the Front Range Passenger Rail District. We are modeling, starting to send the dollars out to the stations in the north in 2028, and the stations in the south would start to receive the local return dollars in 2029.
Great. Thank you. I think that's a reassuring approach too for folks who have been spurned by some commitments in the past. And I think that's going to go a long way in just showing, hey, the dollars are intended to come back to each community that is hosting these stations and part of this route.
If I can jump in,
Yeah.
just to kind of reemphasize what he's saying. We're actually in conversations with them right now, simply because where we currently sit with the RTD transit station, the work that we're doing with Front Range Community College, and understanding the siting of the platform. So when he says they're going to work with the local communities, I can say unequivocally that they are.
They already are, yeah.
And they're letting our process kind of guide what this is going to look like. And so we're in a slightly different position because we will be hopefully under construction on a lot of these ahead of when others are going into it. But we're definitely keeping the conversations active so that we don't step on each other's toes. But also, how does it fit into the broader vision of First and Main? Because it is an area that's beyond that platform, which does give us the ability to potentially do things as a community that we wouldn't otherwise have the ability to do with just the standard tax increment funding coming in.
Yeah, that actually is my next question, which is like we're already under contract with RTD. They put $16.5 million into our First and Main transit station, kind of irrespective of the train, though, with a view towards it for sure. Where are other stations in their planning process? I mean, Harold was just alluding to the fact that like we're fairly ahead. Are we like, other than Denver Union Station being already constructed?
Yeah. You guys are the leaders.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish we could take your city government and move it up and down the Front Range because of how outstanding it is. Boulder is very far along. Pueblo is very far along. Colorado Springs is far along. There have been some communities that are a little further behind. And in that case, as we describe the narrative and we do a similar map, it's going to be a lot more conceptual.
Great. Mayor, how much time do I have left?
You were pretty good. You have 3 minutes, 50 seconds left.
Fantastic. I'm just kidding, y'all.
I should say 2 minutes.
I won't need that. I'll just offer a couple final comments. First, I actually grew up on the Northeast Amtrak corridor. I grew up taking that. I've seen this. I've seen how connected and competitive a region can be with the train. We talk about getting somewhere. We don't talk about the jobs, the economic opportunities, the educational opportunities. I hosted the Front Range Community College student government folks recently and showed them around where our First and Main transit station is planned for. They were so excited because of the campuses in Westminster, Larimer, and Longmont. And so that is a huge connector of opportunity that does not involve driving and also allows you to study while you're en route. I think this is fundamentally different from bus service. In fact, from 2010 to 2012, long before I was here and involved in any capacity, I worked consistently to advance the new light rail, the Purple Line, across Maryland, connecting communities across the D.C. metro area. This was originally proposed in the 1980s. So it took numerous negotiations and input on routes, alignment, budget there. The service is now planned to start in 2027. So on that timeline, we're actually looking pretty good. I wouldn't hold that up as a model, but it was an interest. They're building new track. They're not even aligning with existing rail. So they had to deal with all of the properties and eminent domain and all of that. Unlike Fast Tracks, which proposed 6 different lines, and some of which obviously haven't even been built 20 years later, I think truly at FRPR and the approach that y'all are taking is different. It's one line. It's one line where Longmont is right in the middle of the route. It's not an outlier. And I think for people who are skeptical in terms of investment, you have a right to be so, but because this is one line, we're no longer on the edge of that. RTD's $16.5 million that we just talked about is a key piece of that. The $333 million is another key piece of that, obviously. And that starter service is a solid start. But what I also want to acknowledge and really commend from, and make sure that the public is aware, planning with this expansion already in mind, again, up to the voters, but planning with that in mind is actually really critical and commendably so. Transit often fails because it's not as safe, comfortable, or convenient, which then deters people from using it, and then that further deteriorates the system, and it's a downward spiral if we aren't planning for that upward cycle. When trust in government is at an all-time low, I think some of this trust is locally eroded partly because of the unfulfilled promises locally. Many other reasons too, but it can happen right in our backyard and has. But this major partnership, the term sheet and the focused delivery plan will hopefully renew some of that trust. Thank you so much to all of you for your efforts. Many thanks to our past Mayor Peck, to our RTD board members for their advocacy and tireless efforts, to our city staff, FRPR, the governor's office, and many, many other advocates working for years to get to this point, long before I was.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Prieto.
I'll be quick. I just want to thank you for all the work that you've done. I think this is absolutely what Longmont needs and Longmont would benefit from. I would say, and it's perfect timing, like with everything that's going to be happening in that area. Like, I don't know that it could have been planned better. I think maybe there was a reason why it didn't happen before, because the time was now. I don't know. It feels like everything's kind of coming into alignment. I think my only concern would be that other folks learn about Longmont and the gem that it is. You know, we have lots of folks moving to Longmont because it's such a beautiful place. And so you put a beautiful train right through the heart of it. Oh my goodness. We're going to have to put like a policy into place where no newcomers can move in. I don't know. But yeah, I'm already thinking big around what that station can look like and how beautiful and unique it can be to the heart of Longmont. I know that there may be other pressing ballot initiatives that come through should this be put forth on the ballot. And so I'm hoping that our residents can see the beauty in all of them that are coming forward to support our community and to support this service as well. But yeah, thank you for all the work. I am excited. I love the idea of getting angry with my husband and just walking out and taking a train to Pueblo, or, you know, just bye. Not having to jump in my car, or, you know, just, and yeah, and then just the design and the train and the luxury of it. It just feels like, you know, Longmont doesn't have a lot of, you know, things to do at this moment. And I just see this being, you know, especially for our growing senior population who maybe can't get around anymore, being able to jump on a beautiful train, see the Front Range, go have brunch and who knows where, and then come back home. So thanks for all the work that you're doing.
That was nice, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank Sal. Your presentation was great, and Braden, I really do appreciate it. I want to thank, you know, former Mayor Peck for all her hard work, and our current mayor for all your hard work in making things happen around here. And I see in the crowd there my father's former council member and friend Karen Benkner, and my former council member and friend. And the fact that you guys took a risk back then to try to do something. And now I see something that is actually really, really possible. And I just want to thank everybody who's involved with this, because I think it's really the time that sometimes some plans just don't work. But you have to think big if you want big opportunities to happen. And I see this as a realistic way of making things happen, and working in just such a way with folks that we might not, they sometimes wouldn't be the normal, you know, people that would work together, like BNSF and Amtrak. And now we're seeing that, you know, to make things happen in this world, we sometimes have to bring different sort of angles of how we approach things together and really get it across the finish line. So I want to thank all of you, and I will be definitely supporting this and trying to make sure this happens. And I've got ideas. I've got big ideas, people. Okay.
Okay, you know, real quick, yeah, just being, you know, in my capacity, and I feel like my short little time frame that I've been a part of this, and seeing all the work that's built up before that and where we're at today and moving forward, I feel very optimistic. This is the furthest that I've seen us in a position where we are bringing the train to Longmont. And, you know, and I don't say that lightly. I actually did not vote for that ballot fast tracks because we were tight on money. And so then, as the years progressed, I was very kind of angered and bittered. And, but in looking at this, I feel very optimistic and just looking at the work. And, I want to kind of think and bring us, looking at the big picture. And it's not just Longmont that's playing a role in this. There are several other municipalities that we are collaborating with. And having gone with the Northwest Mayors and Commissioners Coalition to DC, where our monthly meetings, and all of the collaborative efforts that are happening with commuting solutions, with Front Range Passenger Rail, with RTD. There are so many entities involved. And now to see that everyone is moving along on the same page, that is something that I have not seen in the past. So I do feel more confident in that regard. And the other thing is kind of looking at you guys, Front Range Passenger Rail, you are a separate entity from RTD. You don't have the authority to say, oh, we're going to handle these fast tracks dollars and we're going to commit to doing that. That's not in your purview to make those decisions. So I do also want to kind of remind that we're talking about two different, and we would be negotiating and working with two separate entities for that regard. So, I want to make sure that we're kind of aligned with that. And hopefully we can all get on board with Front Range Pass on board. Yeah. Council Member Christ, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I did think of a couple of questions that I hadn't asked. You mentioned that there were no train meets on the rail. So are there going to be 3 trains going north, or is it the same train goes north and turns south? Yeah. Paint us a picture, please.
So the first train in the morning, it's going to be 3 daily round trips. So the first train would leave Fort Collins, come down to Denver. It would stay at Denver Union Station for about 20 minutes before it goes right back north, carrying folks to the northern direction. And then you would also have a later morning going again from Fort Collins back down to Denver. It would go back up. It would park in the middle of the day. And then you'd have your other round trip, your final third leg, start again in the afternoon or the early evening and do that again. So that's how we avoid passenger trains meeting on the line. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it does. So, okay. So to piggyback off of the mayor's comments, do you have language for the ballot measure yet? Probably not. You're just asking for...
So to clarify, we are technically 2 separate entities, and the joint service proposal is moving forward with or without the full Front Range proposal. I think it's everyone's belief that if we build it, we should build the full service. It's probably better service to do 10 round trips than 3 round trips. To clarify, to do 10 round trips, we do have to add passenger meets in order to get there, and that adds additional cost. And that's where some of the new tax revenue would be going towards. They're called, in a lot of cases, they're sidings, they're passing lanes on the tracks to allow trains to pass as they're crossing each other. As far as the ballot, we do not have ballot language now. We have till August to do that. We are feverishly working with financial modeling firms, Ernst & Young, the biggest in the country, as well as engineers, to see if we lower everyone wants the lowest tax rate possible, including us. I buy products too. If we turn the lever down just a little more, can we still make it to all the stations by 2032? We're trying to have the lowest tax rate possible while still delivering service everywhere by 2032.
Okay. Will the ballot language be clear that we're purposing our FISA dollars from fast tracks, and we're taking it out of fast tracks? In other words, fast tracks will never happen, and it will be used in Front Range Passenger Rail. And then the other question I have is, I assume the the RTD tax would continue, and that would be the extra revenue. But you're indicating that there's going to be a tax rate increase as well.
So that's one of my children, the only people who can call. You just hit buttons on the side.
Just say, who is this?
Sorry about that. So as I started off, there are two separate entities working together that could eventually have one service together. The first entity, the joint service entity, which brings together state dollars, state enterprise dollars. Let me see this here. And state enterprise dollars, as well as RTD fast track dollars to deliver the first 3 round trips. And as I said earlier, myself as a resident of Pueblo, I'm helping pay for that by renting vehicles or by oil and gas development in our neck of the woods in southern Colorado. So the state is stepping up statewide to help get this done for the Northwest Corridor. The proposed or potential ballot question for Front Range Passenger Rail would be for the intercity passenger rail, the 10 round trips. We would consume the 3 round trips, and we would manage and operate them. Manage the contracts with BNSF to operate them. We would be utilizing largely our own operating dollars and our own budget, with the exception of a commitment from RTD to be putting in 1/3 of the cost of the starter service in perpetuity, which we estimate to be the operating cost would be 10 to 15 million. Beyond that, after we consume this service and receive those dollars from RTD, with the exception of sharing the beeline from Denver to Westminster, we would have very little operationally overlap with RTD. That said, we are studying how to have good first mile, last mile connectivity, making sure that trains align with each other and services align, so that when you get somewhere that your RTD service is there for you. So at the end of the day, it would be, if we pass a ballot measure, Front Range Passenger Rail managing that service and not RTD, but we'd be counting on RTD to put in the 150 from their FISA account, 150 million.
So I think also two sources, the 150 million one-time cash, but then when Sal talked about the ongoing operating expense, that will actually be contractually obligated, and so it wouldn't be in the ballot language, but it would be contractually obligated, where RTD would continue putting that money into the operating portion of the budget.
I'll just piggyback off of City Manager Dominguez and Sal Pace, but I do want to just clarify that these are two separate matters here. The ballot measure is not going to touch RTD's FISA. That is a decision for the RTD Board of Directors to make in consultation with the GM and CEO. And so for joint service, what we are trying to do is unlock and access that money to start this starter service for this region, who's been paying into this since 2005. And so Sal and the district wouldn't take from that. That would be a decision made at the end of this year that I was speaking to. By December, hopefully that we can line up the design review process with RTD's budgeting, so that when they take up and adopt their budget for 2027, the joint service capital projects are already in there, and that RTD would be expending those dollars to make the capital improvements for joint service from Denver to Longmont. Any money outside of that is collected by Sal and the Front Range Passenger Rail District. So I do want to disentangle that for you there. That Sal's ballot measure would not touch FISA. That is a decision made by the Board of Directors.
Yeah. Well, thank you, but you don't have a firm contract from RTD yet to do that, for sure.
I mean, I would just say that we got a 14-1 vote that no one expected to expend the first $5.58 million to actually get to the 90% designs. I think what's so monumental about this project is that it not only brings 6 government agencies together, but also private industry to also work hand in hand together to deliver a service that Coloradans would use and have been wanting, at least in the Northwest Corridor, for 20 plus years. And so getting a 14-1 vote just to even get a further refined cost estimate by the end of this year and have something that the region has never had before, which is that $333 million number, is something that we've never had before. And so that is monumental in and of itself. Yes. What's happening between now and the end of this year is just further refining those cost estimates and actually doing the engineering that's needed. For example, here in Longmont, the Joint Service Executive Oversight Committee has budgeted money for the platform here in Longmont using the FISA dollars. So that project actually lives under RTD's umbrella of projects that they would invest in. So for example, we're not asking the city of Longmont to invest in your platform right now. We are making the investments for your platform, ADA accessibility, wayfinding, security, lighting, and everything that needs to be done outside of the existing right-of-way to make sure that there's connectivity. I think the other thing about First and Main, and I think why the City of Longmont will be an example across the nation, is that you have state agencies, primarily already through DOLA, giving the City of Longmont money for bus rapid transit for that First and Main connection right there. And you also have your local RTA, RTD, giving money for that station site. So this is really a level of coordination that a lot of cities probably don't have, and this is a really new model to do this. I think this is the right way to show the residents of Longmont and Coloradans that government and private business can work together, and that we're being very judicious in expending tax dollars that have been sitting in a bank account for a decade plus that you're trying to access for this.
Mm-hmm.
There's, I think, something that's maybe unspoken here, but 330 million. Talking about 150 million from the FISA account and 183 million from state sources, and we're trying to move quick to sign this deal with BNSF. And I think what's maybe not what should be obvious to everybody is in January we'll have a new governor with new priorities. And we have a governor right now ready to help get that $181 million or $83 million to complete this project using state dollars. If we delay, next governor might say, I think it's better used somewhere else.
Well, you're giving me grains of hope. For one, you got the accountants involved right away, which didn't happen with Fast Tracks, and that's a good accounting firm. Also, I'm excited that there's going to be very little overlap with RTD because sometimes their service is, their service data is murky. I'll just put it that way. So, thank you for unpackaging that, and obviously it is clear that you two have lived in this arena for some time and know it inside and out. So, so appreciate you being patient to answer all the questions. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any friends.
You have Joan. She's not sure. We're just acquaintances, right? All right. Thank you all.
Yeah, and thank you, council, for all the questions.
Oh, I do have one other thing. I just happened to bring it up. Prices to Glenwood are $25 a train ride. If you want to go all the way on Amtrak to Chicago, it's $172. And generally, tickets in Denver to, like, say, Omaha or what, someplace kind of more regional is $41. So, that might be doable if you needed a day away.
So will council get to ride the first train? Go ahead.
You all better be there on New Year's Day.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the questions from council and your time and thoughtfulness in all your answers. This was very helpful. Thanks. Okay, so before we move on to public comment, does anyone need to take a bio break? Do you need to take a 5-minute or 3-minute break? I need a walk. Okay, so we're going to cut to a quick 3-minute break, and I we'll get to public comment right away. Yeah. Yes, I just saw everybody. Okay, council, let's go ahead and resume. Make your way back to the dais, and we are going to continue on with public comment. First call, public invited to be heard. The first person on the list is Sharon O'Leary. I did not see, oh, there you are, yes. Come, make your way forward, please. Okay, can you check to see if your mic's on? No, it's not. No.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead. Please
That
state your
always
name.
scares me. Don't start that timer yet.
Yeah.
Here we go. Sharon O'Leary, 534 Emory Street. I'm here tonight to talk about the potential amendment that would allow short-term rental licensings to change for major regional events. Presently, Longmont has the most lenient rules in Boulder County. Longmont allows one personal property and one investment property. Louisville has a ban on STRs, but is considering lifting it. Lafayette allows one, and the city and county of Denver allows one. At multiple city council meetings throughout the year, this council wrestles with solving the dilemma of affordable housing. An additional amendment could directly interfere with the concept of providing affordable housing. Housing for a major regional event sounds like a problem for the hotel industry. Affordable housing sounds like a city problem. If Longmont changes the STR policy, it will not only impact affordable housing, but simultaneously severely impact certain neighborhoods. Maybe you should get some feedback from the Neighborhood Group Leaders Association. Here are some concepts of concern. What is the definition of a regional event? How many regional events per year? Is there sufficient staff to make sure that STRs are meeting requirements, including safety? Is it the problem of the neighborhood to inform the city of violators, or will the city have sufficient staff? Who will be enforcing STR rules and regulations? Code enforcement? They don't even work the weekends. If things get out of control, it falls on the police department, or it's not addressed at all due to lack of staff. What about noise and parking violations? Whose job is that? Instead of rushing for a quick solution, I have an alternate solution that could protect long-term home owners who don't want their properties going up due to inflated investment property values. There are more than enough empty apartment buildings within Longmont. Why not put a proposal out to the apartment building owners to see if they would be interested in renting out empty apartments? They could fill the apartment with rental furniture the same way realtors stage homes for sales. This would help their bottom line while waiting for their buildings to fill. It would also allow the city to have data, real-time data from the Sundance major event. It would also take the rush and add another thing to our planning department, so why don't we give them a break? Longmont is already ahead of Denver and other local cities when it comes to STR rules. Let the benefit go to all citizens, the long-term residents, those on fixed incomes, and the ones who hope to buy a home someday. Don't boulder Longmont. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Diana Chavez?
Hello, my name is Diana Chavez. I live on Princess Drive, Longmont. And there's so many things that concern me right now, but one of the major thing I think is the surveillance that is just happening everywhere. And so, and I'm reading this from a Substack. He's done the research and condensed it nicely. It's going to take more than tonight for me to get through it, but it's pretty enlightening into the manifesto of Alex Kapar, I think his name is. Anyway, this article is called Palantir Part 1, The Technological Republic Manifesto versus Natural Law and Constitutional Protections, which I think we're losing in this process in trying to have a perceived safety, I guess. So anyway, I'm just going to spend my time, my remaining time, reading a bit of this as an introduction. You'll probably see me back here every week because I want people to hear this. What is Palantir? In J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, a Palantir is an indestructible dark crystal sphere used for far-seeing and telepathic communication. The term derives from the Quenya language combining Palin, which means far, and Tur, which means to watch over, translating to far-seer or those who watch from afar. So let that sink in first, those who watch from afar. With that in mind, what follows is the man behind the company that is telling you that he and Silicon Valley have a duty to put this apparatus of surveillance in place. That is the intention and the plan. That plan is already in action. So what does the Palantir do exactly? I think I'm going to skip that part for things that I think are more important. The Technological Republic, or a technocracy controlling people. Introduction and analytical framework. This is an analysis examines the 22-point manifesto attributed to Palantir CEO Alex Karp, summarizing his book, The Technological Republic. The evaluation is grounded in the foundational principles of natural law and constitutional protections as articulated in American historical jurisprudence and including the works of Blackstone, Locke, Story, the statutes at large, and Vattel's Law of Nations. Let's see. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to be back because I want this discussion to continue. Thank you.
I'll see you next week. Take care. Next person on the list, Martin Orner.
Martin Orner, 1417.
You may begin.
1417 Auburn Court here in Longmont. I'm really skeptical about this train thing. I really am. There's so many things that are not answerable at this point in time, and everybody seems to be jumping on the train. Where's the demographic study? Who's going to ride this train? Where's the revenue projections? How much is it going to pay? Everybody's saying we're going to have this great train. Is it going to pay for itself? They showed a picture. I think I counted 6 rail cars on that train, 6 passenger cars, not including the engine. Look, we have the Flex bus from Boulder to Fort Collins. It's free. It's free. Hardly anybody's riding that thing. They're putting in the new transit train on 119 from Longmont to Boulder. In the median is a transit improvement. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a dedicated train.
There's a
a bus lane, yeah, dedicated bus. So we have those things going on already. And now we're talking about adding something completely different for a completely different user, completely different demographic. So, look, I know I-25 is a mess. And by the way, Hover in this city is going in that same direction. I think that voting for this train is irresponsible until there are real projections as to, number one, are we looking at future tax increases? Number two, what's the revenue side of this look like from the people who are supposed to use it? And number three, who's the projected customer? Thank you.
Thank you. Gaithia Weiss.
Hi, I'm Gaithia Weiss. I live on Cannon Mountain Drive. And because you're all good at multitasking, my comments have to do with the 26-27 water supply and water shortage plan. And this does give strategies for getting through this year, but our climate, as we know, is getting increasingly warmer and drier with higher evaporation and less snow retention. And I think we need to be taking long-term considerations when we think about what we're doing with our water. Page 7 of this report states that the division staff will complete a multi-year water evaluation. I think this is essential and deserves more emphasis. Page 19 on this report mentions limiting the amount of non-functional turf grass. This is something I've been advocating for ever since I've lived in this community for 12 years now, that we should be looking at the parks and seeing which parts are actually used, which parts could be put into more natural settings. The city should be providing proactive leadership on this by actively converting non-essential turf areas in parks and golf courses. And this should go beyond what is said in this report about best management practices for Colorado golf courses, as mentioned here. I think we should be really looking at all of the area, evaluating what needs to happen with a thoughtful approach that is appropriate for our future environment, because we are entering a new era of increasing need for water conservation. I think that it's foolish not to be really looking at this in a more long-term, comprehensive way. It's not just about how do we get through this year's watering season. Can we water 2 times a week or 3 times a week or 4 times a week? It's about, should we be watering this stuff, or do we need to get something else entirely? Do we need a different look? We can't keep imitating the East Coast. It never should have, really, but certainly now we need to think about what kind of environmental plantings we need for the future. Thank you.
Great, thank you. David Hodges.
David Hodges. I live on Bluefield Avenue. I'm here to speak to you in opposition of the Axon ALPR cameras. I'm certainly not, I generally am pretty comfortable speaking in public, but this is the first time speaking on community matters. So forgive my imperfection. I feel it's that important, though, to get out of my comfort zone and certainly out of my wheelhouse. I was completely perplexed that the council voted 8-0 to, just after 3 months of discontinuing the flock cameras, to go with the Axon cameras. I intended to provide some perspectives because I wanted to learn more about what all you think about our community. And I heard a lot of you speak, and I spoke to a lot of you. But I completely perplexed as to why the urge and need to move forward so fast with this surveillance. I believe that surveillance should at least have public comments, and really strongly feel that it's a matter so important that we should vote on it. There's plenty of other communities that have gone down this road, and we can learn from them. We can take the benefits, look at the drawbacks, and present that to the community and let them decide. I think it's that important that when we're talking about things that can surveil us, that the community has a voice in this. I believe there are a bunch of reasons given, but I don't believe any of them were good enough. There was a trusted vendor in Axon that started with us in 2000 with tasers, and they are familiar with the safety of the PD, but that doesn't override the safety of the community. There's also local ownership of the data and access logging, but we all have seen the nefarious uses that have already happened, and just because that it's locally owned doesn't prevent those things from happening. We're tracking acquaintances or using that data against political opponents. If it can be collected, it can be corrupted. I'd just like to finish by saying a phrase, a quote from Ben Franklin. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty or safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Ethan Johnson.
Ethan Johnson, 2190 Miller Drive. My name is Ethan Johnson. I serve as the Vice President of Operations at Front Range Community College, the largest community college in Colorado, with campuses in Westminster, Fort Collins, and Longmont. I'm here tonight because what this district decides in the coming months will have a direct and lasting impact on our students, our employees, and the communities we are privileged to serve. FRCC supports the Front Range Passenger Rail District. We support the station area vision for Longmont, and we urge this body to move forward with the confidence that comes from knowing institutions like ours are ready to be partners in this work. Here's why this matters so much to us. FRCC and the City of Longmont are in the process of developing an urban innovation campus in the heart of downtown, intentionally located in the urban core, aligned with Longmont's redevelopment vision and designed to serve as a civic anchor for this entire region. This campus will expand programs in advanced manufacturing, health sciences, engineering, business, technology, and the creative arts. It is a once-in-a-generation investment in this community. And when I look at the Front Range Passenger Rail project, it all makes this possible. I see these two visions not just as compatible, but as mutually reinforcing. A rail-connected downtown Longmont transforms our innovation campus from a local asset into a regional one, as a student from Denver, Brighton, or Commerce City can board a train and arrive at a college campus ready to train for the industries Colorado needs most, without a car, without the barrier of distance, without the burden of impossible logistics. That changes who can access higher education, and that matters enormously. From an operations standpoint, I can tell you that transportation is not a peripheral concern for our institution. In fact, it is central to our ability to recruit and retain students, faculty, and staff. Anything that expands reliable, affordable mobility across the corridor strengthens our capacity to serve. I also want to acknowledge that the resolution before this body represents the formal support for this station area narrative is a signal to the district, to the region, and to voters that this community is ready. Colorado's Front Range is growing, the pressure on our roads and communities increase, and our institution is feeling that pressure. This is the moment to build the infrastructure that meets the future with intention. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley Berkowitz.
All right. First of all, I would like to comment on one of the things that Jake Marsing said earlier during the presentation about being, what was it, 9 years old when Fast Tracks was approved. I was about -3 years old. I was born after. This is not a jab at your age. I was born after Fast Tracks was approved. I grew up with the dream of a train from Denver to Longmont slowly dying. I think this council should accept that Fast Tracks is dead. The RTD, one of the RTD directors said as much recently that RTD itself thinks that Fast Tracks isn't going to be built. And I think we should take them at their word on this. But Longmont still wants a train to Denver. We still want that access. And the connection to other places, Fort Collins, talking about Pueblo and even other states. I must admit I'm not crazy on the Coco name, but I still support the construction of the train. I think that oh man, I had a lot of things that I was going to say, so let's see if I remember any of them. I think that the proposal for this new train is a responsible use of Longmont taxpayers' dollars. I think that Longmont has been sold on this promise of Fast Tracks. We've been paying into it. We've paid millions and millions of dollars, and we have gotten nothing in exchange. Nothing. And so I think that this project represents the best hope for this city to actually see good quality rail service to Denver. And I would say that with regards to the ballot measure, I support it, and I think it should be passed. And I think we should continue to see cooperation between RTD, between Front Range Passenger Rail, between all the institutions. But they've said that we've been leading on planning the station, and I think that this city should also lead in realizing this project. Thank you. Let's build this train.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I love your enthusiasm. Next person on the list, Tracy Jones. Are they there? Nope. Lance Whitaker.
I don't see him.
No. Okay, next person on the list. He went on the train.
I don't know about the train unless it goes to it is going to the Mile High, ain't it? All right. Today is National Odometer Day. I don't know what you want to do with your odometer, but there you go. It's also National Nutty Fudge Day, Fibromyalgia Awareness Day. It is also National Limerick Day. So with that, I'll have this little one for you.
Oh, gosh.
There was a man of the West who never could get any rest. So they set him to spin on his nose and his chin, which cured that old man of the West. Ain't that a bunch of nonsense? All right. May 12th birthdays. Katharine Hepburn's birthday today. George Carlin's birthday today. Emerald Estevez's birthday today. And they all can be 3D printed thanks to Charles Hall, who invented the 3D printer. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Meg Thornbury.
Hi, my name is Meg Thornberry. I live in Ward 2,
And I am here to talk to you guys about the same thing that I just ran out the door to talk to her about. We have created an organization called the Visible Government League. You can check us out at visiblegovernmentleague.org or on Instagram and Facebook. And our goal is essentially to keep an eye on all of the mass surveillance things that are happening. So we are here in the name of government transparency to give people a space to share their concerns, to take action together, to build community. The fun fact about this name is that it is actually part of Longmont's history. In the 1920s, when the KKK ran city council, from behind the scenes in shady ways, they went and there was a group of people who said this is not okay, and they got together and they created the Visible Government League. And they created a group that went and pushed the KKK out of town. So we are hoping, not to accuse you guys of being the KKK in any way, but we are here for ensuring that we have the clarity, that we have the transparency so that we can feel safe and represented as citizens, and all of us as citizens. And non-citizens as well, residents, I would say, anybody in Longmont. So we have twice monthly socials that we are having. They are going to be on the 2nd and 4th Mondays of the month from 7 to 9 p.m. At St. Vrain Cidery. So please come join us. We are going to be continuing to learn more about the different types of cameras. I was looking around today and I was like, oh, I know what type of camera that is now. So we are going to be having a presentation about that. So please come join us. And yes, we would love to see that. I did want a quick comment on something that Crystal said earlier. I totally agree with you that Longmont is a gem and we love it and it's precious. And as somebody who is in the queer community, we are receiving a lot of refugees from other states right now. So I just want to make it, open that we are going to have more people coming into Longmont. We need to plan for that. We have such an incredible community here that is not present in Boulder, not at all. So we are just very much going to be getting people in from out of state. So absolutely understand, we got to keep everything there, but I also think it's really important for Longmont to be open, and in terms of the surveillance, also very much supportive of that. In Mississippi, they just changed their regulations to make it so that when someone is pulled over, if they are trans now, ICE will be called in. So immigration and customs doesn't really have anything to do with gender identity. So that is being passed in other states. I trust you guys to fight that, but that is what's coming down the pipeline. So I just want to make sure that we, again, are being very responsible with our technology so we can protect our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Stanley Toll?
Stan Toll? Stan Toll, 2001, Terry. Thank you for letting me talk, City Council. What I'd like to do is bring the council's attentions to what's happening to our trees. These plants represent years of development, as such should call for special attention during this present drought. One of the big problems is that lots of our trees have become dependent on turf irrigation, and without supplemental watering, there's a risk that we could lose these trees, particularly where water's cut off for where the turf area is. The other issue is the Chinese emerald borer, which is attacking a lot of our ash trees. A lot of times you can tell them because they start at the top, but once they get lower, the tree is gone. There's two main ways of protecting the trees. This is an invasive insect from China. And one is injecting insecticide into the trunk, which is the best way, but it's the most expensive. The other way is drenches with insecticides but when there's lots of irrigation, you don't want to use that. But I don't think we're having that problem this year. So what the city needs to do is really jump on this because it's early in the season, particularly for the emerald borer. control and educate as many people with flyers and stuff. And, you know, I've actually watched your Parks Department work on trees around like the Centennial Pool area where they treat the trees and save them. It lasts for 2 years. But so many people, they don't know what's happening to their trees and they think it's just a little bit up there. And if you start treating when it's just a little bit up there, you can save the trees. And then the issue is making sure people know that if they cut off the turf watering, they need to have a couple of deep waterings for the trees or else they're going to be lost. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Stewart?
Mayor, members of council, Scott Stewart, 229 Grant Street. What am I talking about tonight? Like to speak about the airport. We're waiting again, this time on a rates and charges study. I hope the report we're waiting for provides the board detail that the city can use to create the needed changes that will allow the airport to operate independently. Since the airport has been an enterprise fund for some time now, you would think it was possible as spelled out in the city policy and procedures, to adjust their rates and fees to meet the budget needs. The lack of adequate reserves and the need to receive discounts on services provided by taxpayers shows the fundamental mismanagement for more than 10 years. We are also waiting for a report from AMS, the software company that has been providing data to the airport for over 2 years now. The information that will be provided by AMS in this report is available to the airport management now. Its information can be provided on a monthly basis if there was a will to provide it. It seems that when it comes to the airport, we are really good at kicking the can down the road. While we wait for these reports, can the airport staff please make an effort to communicate to those pilots and aircraft owners that are operating beyond the VNAP and outside of the basic fly-friendly guidelines that are already in place? Please make the communications. We can do something here. We just have to have the will to do something. Thank you.
Thank you. Kellen Lask?
Good evening, Kellen Lask. Yeah, just wanted to thank the people who came out to talk about surveillance. That was unexpected and exciting. The main reason I'm here is to talk about the train. I am from Boulder, born and raised in and around Boulder. And about 5 years ago when I moved to Longmont, the biggest reservation I had was around public transit and getting around without a car. This was an aspect of Boulder that I really enjoyed, and that was the biggest reason that I was a little reticent to actually move to Longmont. I'm very glad I did. I love the community here. This is an amazing place. But things like public transit really are good indicators of the health of your community. They're not optional. Not everyone can get around in a car. Young people don't have driver's licenses. The elderly can't see that well. The disabled may or may not be able, they have whatever issues that may or may not prevent them from driving a car. We can't just have cars the only option to get around our community. That leaves many people just rotting at home on a couch, unable to participate in community. That's not okay. So yeah, this train is, if any of you have ever seen like the Spanish transit system, for example, woefully inadequate, right? Like it's comical how terrible the public transit is in the United States. but this is a really good entry point. I don't think this is exactly the product we need. I definitely don't think the cadence is what we're going to end up wanting, but this is getting our foot in the door, and we can widen that. We can expand it. The demand is there. People really would love to have opportunities to get around without driving. And you can see this a lot as well as a public safety issue. Things like drunk driving. Why are people driving drunk? It's because they don't have another option, right? You can't take the train home. You can't take the bus home. You have a car. You have some drinks with friends. That's often the only way that people have community in the U.S. We don't have a lot of third spaces. You have to go pay, often drinking, or like going to movies or whatever, I don't know. But you always have to pay to like do something to hang out with other people. And then you have to get home. And so, yeah, expanding intra-city, like local public transit is very important, and intra-city, like the whole picture.
Great, thank you. Andy Bartlett?
Hi, good evening. I'm Andy Bartlett, and a longtime resident of Southmore Park. Southmore Park, I think I'm going to just pick up where the last speaker left off about the importance of public transportation and how hard it is for our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is surrounded by Main and Kim Pratt Boulevard. And Kim Pratt Boulevard is a moat. It separates us from the rest of the city. And I would like Longmont to look to Boulder as an example. Boulder has the same highway. It comes in and becomes 28th Street and then Canyon. They put pedestrian crosswalks on both those streets. And the culture on the highway has changed. People are now on the lookout for pedestrians. Longmont's attitude seems to be we want to get people from Johnstown to Blackhawk as fast as possible, and our city has an obligation to help those people. We have to help our citizens. And I wanted to point out, and what time I have here, the worst intersection in the city for pedestrians is South Sunset and Kim Pratt Boulevard. If you push the walk button on that street,
Drive it every day.
yeah, you get green for Sunset first by about 8 seconds. So everyone revs up. People are making that nice broad 30-mile-an-hour right turn from Sunset onto the Kim Pratt are not looking for a pedestrian. The pedestrian light then turns walk after people are making this very fast right turn. Anyone who's made the turn before the pedestrian light turns will just follow the taillights of the previous driver. And the ones making the very sharp turn are blind. They can't see the pedestrian because it's way back on the left. So something needs to be done about that crosswalk and the timing there. And anyway, I totally support all the speakers on the train. Let's get it going, and it will complement Bustang, not compete. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And feel free to email your Councilmember Popkin. I know he has something that he's chomping at the bit to tell you. So, okay, we're going to, seeing no one else on the list, I will now close public invited to be heard. And we are now on to item 9, consent agenda and introduction and reading by title of first reading ordinances. Dawn, can you please read the consent agenda into the record?
Of course, Mayor. The second reading and public hearing for the 2024 International Code Council Family of Building Code ordinances that will be introduced on this agenda, which are items 9A-1 through 9A-11. That second reading and public hearing will be held on June 9th, 2026. Second reading and public hearing for the other ordinance tonight that is introduced will be on May 26, 2026. So item 9A is a group of ordinances for the adoption of the 2024 International Code Council Family of Building Codes, including regional cohort and state of Colorado amendments to the International Energy Conservation Code. 9A1 is ordinance 2026-22, a bill for an ordinance amending Title 16, Chapter 16.02 of the Longmont Municipal Code concerning building and construction code compliance. 9A2 is ordinance 2026-23, a bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 16.04 of the Longmont Municipal Code to adopt by reference the 2024 International Building Code. 9A3 is ordinance 2026-24, a bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 16.06 of the Longmont Municipal Code to adopt by reference the 2024 International Residential Code. 9A4 is ordinance 2026-25, a bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 16.12 of the Longmont Municipal Code to adopt by reference the 2024 International Mechanical Code. Item 9A5 is ordinance 2026-26, a bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 16.14 of the Longmont Municipal Code to adopt by reference the 2024 International Fuel Gas Code. 9A6 is ordinance 2026-27, a bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 16.16 of the Longmont Municipal Code to adopt by reference the 2024 International Plumbing Code. Item 9A7 is ordinance 2026-28, a bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 16.20 of the Longmont Municipal Code to adopt by reference the 2024 International Property Maintenance Code. 9A8 is ordinance 2026-29, a bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 16.22 of the Longmont Municipal Code to adopt by reference the Metro Cohort Model Code based on the 2024 International Energy Conservation Code. 9A9 is ordinance 2026-30, a bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 16.28 of the Longmont Municipal Code to adopt by reference the 2024 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. Item 9A10 is ordinance 2026-31, a bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 16.32 of the Longmont Municipal Code to adopt by reference the 2024 International Fire Code. And item 9A11 is ordinance 2026-32, a bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 16.40 of the Longmont Municipal Code to adopt by reference the 2024 International Existing Building Code. Item 9B is ordinance 2026-33, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for expenses and liabilities of the City of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2026. Item 9C is resolution 2026-27, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the St. Vrain Valley School District RE1J for the Pathways in Technology Early College High School P-Tech internship. Item 9D is resolution 2026-28, a resolution of the City of Longmont, Colorado supporting the Front Range Passenger Rail District's narrative summary for proposed Longmont Station and the development of passenger rail service along the Front Range.
Okay, yes, thank you. That was quite the list. Okay, and so per our discussion earlier and our just kind of this brief consensus around consent agenda use, remember to pull consent items only to vote against or propose an amendment, not for general discussion or signaling to the public. So, Councilmember Kalkofer.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull A3.
Okay, A3. Okay, and Councilmember Prieto.
I'm not wanting to, I wanted to pull A3 until you made the comment,
Okay.
and then I'm like, oh man.
Okay.
But hold on. I do have a question regarding the sprinkler systems.
So is it in A3 or
Is it in A3?
A3, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't
So
sure if we
then-
had to pull it or if staff
No.
was gonna talk to
When
us about
they,
it.
when they pull it, you can direct your question when we go back to discuss that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, can, Councilmember Christ.
I'll pull 9D.
9D. Okay. And then seeing no one else in the queue, would you like to pull the consent agenda minus A3 and D? Wait.
9D,
9D.
yeah. Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move consent agenda minus A3 and 9D.
Okay, so the motion has been made to approve the consent agenda minus items A3 and D, 9D. It made by Councilmember Chris, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem McCoy. Let's go ahead and vote. Okay. Great. Okay, thank you, and that carries unanimously. We are now on to ordinances on second reading and public hearings on any matter. Item 10A, public hearing and consideration of recommendations for the 2026 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG Program Annual Action Plan. And it looks like we have Christy Weissman from our Housing Investment Manager to present.
All right. Good evening, Council and Mayor. Sorry, did that backwards. Christy Wiseman, I'm the Housing Investment Manager, and pleased to talk about our 2026 CDBG Action Plan with you tonight. So just a quick refresher, I know we talked about CDBG back in March when we presented our CAPER, so I'll keep this brief. But we receive CDBG from HUD every year based on Longmont's population. Our program year is the calendar year, and we generally take recommendations from CDBG for our CDBG funding for that program year in spring every year. So tonight serves as our public hearing, and then just a reminder that our projects, our housing development projects that are proposed to be funded with Affordable Housing Fund, and then the new Boulder County 1B Attainable and Affordable Housing Tax Funds, those projects will come to you on June 30th in a separate presentation. All right, so for 2026, we will receive $546,102 of CDBG. This shows you CDBG entitlement funds over time. It's kind of waned and waxed with that congressional appropriation, but it is generally trending downward over time, and it's reliant on Congress approving funding every year. So this is our proposed budget for 2026, and as I will get into, we are proposing to use the bulk of our allocation for our housing rehabilitation program with a 20% administration taken out. So HUD allows us to use 20% of our grant every year for administration, and we use that to pay for staff expenses. It doesn't fully cover the cost of the program, but definitely helps us administer the program and meet all of our HUD requirements. So now I'll talk a little bit about our partnership with Brothers Redevelopment, who is the nonprofit that actually administers our housing rehabilitation program. So traditionally, the housing rehabilitation program was run in-house by staff. Previously, it was community services staff, and then when the community services department was broken up between Housing Community Investment and CNR, it was run by housing staff. And really just over time, we had staff turnover and just no longer had that in-house construction expertise, having staff crawling around rooftops, crawling in sinkholes, looking for asbestos in homes. And so really in 2024, we came to the conclusion that we wanted to contract the program out to an organization that really does this and does this well. So we did a competitive RFP process, selected Brothers. They do this for multiple other local governments in Colorado, including Broomfield, Thornton, Firestone. They run CDBG rehab programs. And so we've been working with them over a year now, and the program's going really well. And we're basically just trying to keep pumping that funding in so we can continue serving homeowners. And I also want to point out that this program helps us meet one of our main goals of our regional consolidated plan that you all approved last year, which is existing homeownership preservation. So these are low-income homeowners, mostly seniors, that are at 80% AMI and below, really helping them stay stable and housed. And it's kind of considered a form of unsubsidized or naturally occurring affordable housing. So we really feel like this is an important service in the community to keep, and we definitely see the community need. So far in 2026, we have projects ongoing. We have a lot of folks in the pipeline. And then I can speak to, like at the Connect Longmont event a few weeks ago, I had many conversations with people interested in the program. So there's definitely, as word is now out that Brothers is out in the community and we have funding, we have a pretty healthy application pipeline of people coming in and wanting to apply. So with the 2026 funding, we could fund an additional about 20 projects with that amount, and that is a cap of $25,000 per home. And then here's just a couple examples of the types of projects that we have completed. So we have here on a mobile home, leaking and mold found in a water heater closet, gutting that out, replacing it, putting in a new water heater and doing mold mitigation. And then also we have a kind of DIY non-accessible wooden ramp that was replaced with a poured ADA accessible concrete ramp. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is we are required by HUD to do radon testing and mitigation on every single home. And that's a really important piece. Can often be up to $5,000 per project scope. And so that's really a service out in the community that a lot of folks have trouble finding money to pay for, even if they know they have a radon problem in their home. But this program is addressing that every single time we go into a home. And then we also have to test for lead-based paint and asbestos. Those are HUD requirements. So we're really doing our due diligence with those environmental concerns when we're helping folks. So that's the end of my presentation. Happy to take questions. And we also have to hold the public hearing for HUD.
Okay, so yeah, so any questions at this time? Councilmember Prieto.
Thank you. Just something that came up recently when you were speaking right now about some of the tests that you do. In the event that you find asbestos or lead or whatever it is that you're testing for, how do you guys follow through with the tenants? Like, are they responsible for the cost? Do you guys increase the allocation to help them mitigate that? Like, what's that process look like?
Yeah, great question. So we are required to test, and if we do find one of those substances, so whether it's a radon level above the level or lead-based paint, we have to mitigate it, and that comes out of the project scope. So our program has a maximum grant amount per home of $25,000 for site-built homes and $15,000 for mobile homes. It's pretty rare that like lead or radon will be more than that, but if for some reason the required mitigation plus the original scope of the work exceeds that, one of the nice things about working with Brothers is they have access to other funding. So they have other grant funding outside of our CDBG as well as like private philanthropic funding. So we have had cases where, say we had a site-built home that had a $25,000 scope of work, including, $5,000 of that was radon. City CDBG paid that $25,000, and then Brothers went out and got private philanthropic money to cover the difference. In every case, the homeowner does not pay.
Just respond. Yeah, I turned myself off and then I went back on. Thank you. I just wanted to ensure that people are not calling Brothers Redevelopment in to help them with an issue and then, code enforcement's kicking them out or something. That would not be good. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, seeing no one else in the queue, I will now open the public hearing in consideration of recommendations for the 2026 Community Block Development Block Grant, CDBG, program annual action. There is no one on this list, but is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this? Come on down, and you will have 3 minutes. And please state your name.
Hey, I'm Matt Wellborn. I'm at South Main Station. I just had a question about, you said that there's opportunity for 20 potential beneficiaries. Can you explain, or can you?
I apologize. I'm going to stop right
Oh,
here.
sorry.
So the public comment would just be where you are addressing council, but if you have a question, you can probably just discuss it offline.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, you
Oh,
can tell us your concerns.
Knowing that we have the opportunity for as many as 20 beneficiaries, between the 20 that we can service with this program and then the general need in the community, what are some other ways that city council or the community can encourage or sponsor or fund or promote additional services to those who may not qualify for the 20 or, for whatever reason need assistance but can't with this program?
Great, thank you for that, yes. And then, okay, so seeing no one else coming down to speak, I will now close the public hearing. May I have a motion to pass the 2026 CDBG Program Annual Action Plan? So moved. Okay, so that has been made by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there anyone who would like to second that? And that it's been seconded by Councilmember Popkin, and now we can enter into debate. Councilmember Popkin. Yep.
Not vigorous debate here, but I just want to say thank you for the robust presentation, all the work that goes into it. We talk about housing a lot here, and this is just one of many different programs, and we won't get into all of those different programs tonight, but this is serving a small piece of our community, and there are many other programs that I know you and Molly and others are working regularly on, so thank you for that effort. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Yeah, and then I know that you guys work to connect people with the right types of programs as well. So if they don't, go ahead.
Yeah.
So if they don't qualify for one, we definitely do help them find the right program.
And I appreciate the comment. And I will say one of the aspects that goes into administering this program is figuring out, working with the resident, is this the right program for you? Because this is federal funding, so we do have stipulations. We have stipulations about documentation status for immigration, for example. And that's, again, one of the benefits of working with Brothers. They are a very holistic housing nonprofit. They have a housing helpline, and they have access to other sources of funding that's not CDBG. So we have had cases where we've referred Longmont residents to them, and in working with their case managers and the residents, we've said, hey, maybe CDBG, like this particular program, is not a good fit for you, but Brothers has other sources of funding, or there's even other nonprofits. There's like a program called the Capable Program, which provides volunteer services for light home modifications that can do smaller scopes of work, or are there other, again, just referral sources. So we really, tapping into this network with Brothers, now that we've contracted them, has really increased HCI staff ability to help residents compared to when we were just doing it in-house, I would say.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Prieto.
Just something I thought of, especially going through all the codes and stuff. Oh my goodness, that was a lot of work. But essentially, like a lot of so just to the points that were brought up, like a lot of folks are needing home repairs, many of which who can't afford. And some of the code language is like, hey, when you in the event there's damage or upgrades, like you do have to fall into alignment with new codes, and that can be very pricey. I'm curious, and I'm pretty familiar with different programs, like Brothers Redevelopment does specific things to help folks in a certain AMI. And just to put a plug in, they do work with local general contractors and help with the professional development piece, which I think is amazing. But anyways, there's other organizations like you had mentioned that also help with other things, whether it's window insulation, snow removal for seniors. Does the city have a page that folks can go to reference and pull that information? And if not, could we work with either staff or Brothers Redevelopment to gather some of the main resources so residents can refer to them versus having to call your office every time and just, go through that process?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Prieto. That's a great point. I would say we do a lot of behind the scenes referrals. So for example, LPC has energy efficiency focused rehabilitation programs that they run that we have, like if a resident comes in and asks about our housing rehabilitation program, but they like just need a new water heater or just need new windows, and it's clearly an energy efficiency thing. Sometimes we've sent them over that way, if that makes sense. So we do a lot of just staff communication, but I think there are definitely efficiencies to be gained with better coordination. We try really hard to make sure we're not duplicating services, because I know LPC is going after money from the state. We have CDBG, so we kind of stay in our lane. But I don't believe there's like a single landing source for residents interested in home repairs, and that's certainly something we can think about and get with those other program managers and other departments to make some improvements on. That's a great idea.
Perfect. Yeah, that would be wonderful, because I know even like the LEAP will provide free water heaters to folks who've qualified in the past. And so, yeah, if we can just get that information out to the public, I think that will also help with some of the staff capacity and timing. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, seeing no one else on the queue, let's go ahead and vote. Okay. Oh, did it show up? Okay, good. Okay, and that carries unanimously. Thank you, Christy. Okay, we are now on to items removed from consent agenda, and we're going to go ahead and start with item 9A3. And Councilmember Kalkofer.
Thank you, Mayor. So for most of these, they're all required next year. Matt, can you explain A3 for the in-home sprinklers, if that is something that is required eventually, or is that optional?
Thank you, Council members. There it goes. Thank you, Councilor Kalkofer. Matt Payette, Chief Building Official. It has been in the code since 2012, and we have been amending it out every cycle since then. As of right now, there is no state requirement that would require us to remove our amendment that opts out of the residential fire sprinklers.
Thank you for that. I've had a lot of conversations about this in-home single-family sprinklers, and I was hoping that if you had these, that your insurance would be lower, but I heard that that's not the case, because if you have the sprinklers go off, then you have water damage that the insurance then has to pay for. So for me, I see this as an added cost. And when I was speaking to some folks in fire, they also said that it wouldn't also help them. But can I get a comment from fire if this would help with your all's calls?
In regards to operations?
Yeah.
So the benefits that fire sprinklers would have in regards to the operation side is a lot of times the fire would be put out before fire arrives. So with that said, fire would be put out more quickly, less damage to the house, less displacement of the residents, including smoke damage and things of that nature. The sprinkler heads itself produce a lot less water than traditional, hose streams and things like that. When we're talking like 8 to 20 gallons of water a minute versus our initial hose stream is roughly 150 gallons a minute. So there is, I think, some ways to reduce damage with the sprinklers if they activate, and they're also a reliable process.
And I know with commercial sprinklers that they have to go through a regular maintenance period because sitting water can start to get pretty funky. So what is the level of effort for a homeowner to have to service this, and what's the cost to do that?
So right now there's no service and there's no cost to do it. We allow only 2 systems, a passive purge or a multi-purpose system within Longmont. It uses common plumbing fixtures. So when you flush your toilet, for instance, your most remote toilet circulates water within your piping. So the same piping that's kind of being used for your common fixtures is the ones that are also being used for the sprinkler system design itself. So there's no maintenance. One of the other things that we include is a shut-off for the residents. So if they did have one of those leaks or they did have an unintentional activation, something like that, they would have the ability to quickly turn off the system within their unit.
What do we think the additional cost would be for a single-family home to have a system like this?
Matt and I both, I think, agree that on the high side, we're probably looking at $4 a square foot.
So on a standard house?
So I would say like roughly in that $5,000 to $6,000 range for a 15,000 square foot house, somewhere in there.
And how many calls do we have where we have fatalities because the person cannot get out of their house in time?
So on average, there's 3,000 people that die in fires, residential fires, a year.
In Longmont?
Not in Longmont.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
That would be scary if we did that. Our ISO rating would go down significantly.
Yeah. More specifically in Longmont.
In Longmont, luckily, we do not have, it's not common that we have a fatal fire.
One of the concerns that I have, since we do talk about affordable housing all the time, is this is something that somebody can do if they want to now. It's not, we're not preventing them from doing it, but it's another added cost that is going into the building, and we're getting farther away from having a true affordable product. And all of the building codes that we read through are making houses safer. So I believe that if somebody chooses to do this, they can, but us requiring that developments have this is putting an undue burden and additional cost that is getting us farther away from affordable housing. So I'm not in favor of this particular one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Prieto.
Yeah, and I think just to addition to Councilor Kalkofer's point, I think I read like there's additional costs for like sketching out where the sprinkler system has to go and yada, yada, yada. So I would also echo, I think my one question is now that we're becoming more condensed in our housing builds, I'm just like thinking how fast one house fire can transfer to another, which can transfer to another. I read that the internal sprinklers are not that good at preventing those types of fires. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like if my neighbor's house is on fire and then my outside starts to burn up, does the internal sprinklers do anything to help prevent or?
Yeah, so ultimately, they would obviously prevent fire from spreading or growing, to say it simply. But when we're looking at, really these two systems are broken down into a 13D, or if you're dealing in the IRC, you're going to deal with a P2904, it's called. So those, they have different goals, I guess you could say, with that. So in the 13D or the P2904, ultimately you're buying time for the resident to escape and you're preventing flashover. So flashover is, full involvement of your house or a space. So that's what you're trying to prevent is in a sense getting them out, where some of the 13 or 13R, which you see in more a robust system, are the systems that actually you're protecting property in addition. Though you get the added benefit, and oftentimes it does put out the fire, that's ultimately, to answer your question, not what they're designed for.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, again, I think I'm kind of on the same page with the housing crisis that we have right now, and just, and then all of the other add-ons and code changes via sustainability and all that stuff that's coming through. I can't imagine just putting more costs on developers, which then get charged to the residents. So yeah, I'm for just keeping it as is. I do have a question on section 1606060 work exempt permit, specifically to change permit exemptions for small accessory structures. It says, let's see, that it slightly expands when permits are required, and so it's like sheds and playhouses. And I'm one of those people that I like, if I want to build a shed in my backyard, I don't want to have to be getting permits for small things like that. And so could you talk to me a little bit about, delete some prior exemptions. Can you talk to me about what those exemptions are?
I'm not sure which prior exemptions that deletes, but I believe the exemption you're talking about is going from 200 square feet requiring a permit down to 120 square feet requiring a permit. So if it's less than 120 square feet, you still don't need a permit for it.
Okay, but if it's more.
Correct. Yeah, if
we
it's more
need
than
a
120 square
permit.
feet, then yeah, a permit is required.
And talk to me about the logic around changing that.
It more aligns with other codes, so like the International Building Code, which mostly conducts itself with commercial buildings, is at 120 square feet. And also, I know that multiple municipalities around us have the same amendment.
Okay. And can you talk to me a little bit about like the permitting for a small structure like a shed or something like that being built in your yard? Like, is it extensive? Like, what are people looking at there?
What we will require is the application plans, and they don't need to be drawn up by an architect. They can be drawn by hand as long as we have the information of the framing for the walls, the roof, and what kind of concrete slab or other sort of pier system that it's going to be sitting on. And typically that only takes about 2 to 3 weeks to review. Right now, some staffing issues, we're a little bit longer, but and then the inspection will go out there and we'll look at the footing or foundation, and we'll check out the walls, the roof, and if they put electrical in there, we'll see that too.
Okay. In the event we wanted to keep it at the 200, like what does that do? Like, would it mess everything up today and passing this, or?
I think if we wanted to get rid of that amendment and go back up to 200, I think we could easily implement that by July 1st.
Does my other council members have an opinion on that or preference?
Well, we'll let them, because I have other names in the
okay.
queue, so if you are done.
I am done.
Okay.
I would prefer to keep it at 200 for all my handymans out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to hear what
Okay.
others think.
Okay. Councilmember Popkin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. Just a couple comments in response to Councilmember Prieto here. I do want to note that yes, there are plenty of different code updates that are being that are coming forward here that are going to be integrated. That sometimes can result in an increased upfront cost, and oftentimes, especially when we're talking about energy and sustainability upgrades, actually reduces cost long term when the buildings are built better to begin with, and it makes them safer and it makes them more resilient. And so I think it's really important that, yes, there are some things that can change the cost equation, but sometimes those can be actually in our favor and in favor of the people who are looking to move into these structures. So I think that's really important when we're also thinking about smaller ancillary structures, whether they're sheds, playhouses, or whatever else you want to build. Those are also things that can be combustible. And I think that we want to make sure that things are built to, when we do have permits, it's because those can pose risks to others in our community. And so, regardless of how wonderful your personal construction might be, not everyone may build to the same standards that Council Member Prieto might. And so I think it's important that we also have standards for structures that can cause other risks, health, fire, safety risks in our community as well. I do have one question for our esteemed panelists here. My question builds on what Councilmember Kalkoffer was asking and sharing here with regard to the other structural code changes that are happening, or code changes that are happening regarding other aspects of structures. And I know you're here for the fire sprinklers, but can you just build on or expand on your professional opinions on the safety enhancements that are coming forward kind of across the board from all aspects of these code updates, and how that may relate to the overall safety of the structure, whether there are sprinklers or not?
Do you want to talk about the resiliency code?
And what was?
Well, that's how we're making
Well,
it safer.
I was going to say, I guess the direction that I was going, as you're kind of prefacing the question, is I think oftentimes we can engineer things really, really well, but it seems like each generation has its own risk or things that we add to the generation. And what I'm heading towards is I would say this generation's problem, and we see it consistently here in the city, is lithium-ion batteries. And so, though we're engineering houses smarter than ever, we're using great materials. You know, we have the potential to use fire sprinklers, things of that nature. And then we plug in a scooter that's not compatible with a specific battery, and now we have an unwanted fire. So we're, you know, when this code was brought up, you know, in 2009 to 2012. We didn't have scooters with fancy batteries and all this good stuff. Well, now we've reached a generation where now, though we've engineered and we've had some benefit from it, we've also added our own risk to that as well. So there's ways that I think we can outsmart ourselves, kind of.
That tends to happen from time to time. When we're talking about the sprinklers in this context, are we referring to multifamily buildings, single-family houses, everything in between?
1 and 2 family dwellings.
1 and 2 family dwellings in this case, and so that's specifically what this code amendment refers to.
Correct. Yeah. The other codes require multifamily to be sprinklered anyways.
Yeah, and that helps with the much larger scale of that building and the firefighting response. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, I do see one more in the queue. Councilmember Christ.
I have a question. We talk about multifamily, but what about group homes that have repurposed their bedrooms, you know, for multiple renters? Do those require sprinklers? Because it seems like they ought to.
So right now, the way the code reads is group homes, if they have less than 16 occupants, then it doesn't require sprinklers. And we base that off of the International Property Maintenance Code tables that give you the amount of occupants you can have per square feet.
Does it matter if they're smokers?
Not right now, no, it doesn't.
Okay. Okay, thanks for answering that question. Is there anyone else in the queue?
No, there is no one else in the queue, so if you wanted
would
to
you
ask your...
Perhaps let me move this with the extraction of section 16.06.210 fire sprinklers. And if Councilor Prieto could tell me where I've had it and then I didn't write it down now. I can't find it about
what page was that on? Because I do want to see.
Oh, yeah. Did I write the page number? No, let's see. Keep going back and forth.
I know, I keep going back and forth too.
Should be
I
pretty
just
early
had it.
in the residential code.
Yeah, hold on. We're almost there. I think it's on page, there we go, 9, line 23, which is, 9 is the fire sprinkler. Page 9, line 23 is the fire sprinkler. And now I'm looking for the sheds, which I think was earlier on.
1606.060, section 1606.060. I didn't put a page number.
That was on page 2. I did do a page number. Uh-huh.
And thank you, Councilor Piano. And so also removing section 16.06.060 on page 2.
Okay.
And I'll need a second.
Yeah. Okay, so that has been moved by Councilmember Christ to remove section, I didn't write it down. So, well, and so you would just remove these amended sections for the one-story attached accessory structures used as tool or storage sheds, as well as the sprinklers, indoor sprinklers. And that has been seconded by Councilmember Prieto. I was on board with the sprinkler part, but now I will not support a change with the shed. Would you be willing to do it one at a time?
Yes, let's do it that way.
Would it work if we?
Let's do it. Let's do it with one section and another section.
Yeah, hold on. So, I think it is, I feel like it would be out of order. So, hold on.
It's on our brochure.
Yeah, I know. So, Councilmember, oh, darn it, Councilmember Popkin.
Yeah, so as a point of parliamentary procedure, Councilmember Christ, I believe you were originally going to be motioning to approve this with an amendment. Ideally, procedurally, you would motion to amend this. We would vote on the amendment. Then if
And then
Councilmember
if we-
Prieto
yes,
wanted to offer
yeah.
an amendment, we could vote on that amendment, and then we could make a motion to
Yes.
approve with the approved amendments.
I would like
Faster
to
than the
do it, yeah, I
brochure.
would like to do it one at a time, though. So it's not,
Yes.
if we vote this down, we just go back to the original, but I would really like to just do this one at a time.
Okay.
Okay.
So my motion will be to pass 9A3, removing section 16.06.210 regarding fire sprinklers. I don't think we have.
So
it up
you
yet.
would like to amend? Yeah, so you don't want to pass, we cannot pass the ordinance yet.
Ah.
What we do want to do is amend to remove that language. To remove the where is it at? The sprinkler, yeah, so page 9, line 23, to remove residential sprinkler requirement. You are making a motion to amend to remove, strike that.
Yes, and Dawn has it done perfectly.
Yes, so.
To amend ordinance 2026-24, a bill for an ordinance repealing and reenacting chapter 16.06.
And then, okay.
And remove residential sprinkler requirement, page 9, line 23.
Okay, and then I'm going to kick it back to our council. Yes.
Mayor and Council, Eugene May, City Attorney. The provision in the code as drafted removes the requirement, is a local amendment removing the requirement for sprinklers. So if you want there to be no sprinkler requirement, leave it as is.
Oh, so it's the opposite.
It's a local amendment removing the base requirement in the ICCs of sprinklers.
Okay, I think I misread that.
Yeah, our ask
Okay.
tonight was really the direction on sprinklers. And so because it's already amended out, if you
Yes.
amend the amendment, then it would ultimately
Put it
require the
back,
sprinklers.
Require the sprinklers. Okay.
So we want to leave it
We
as
have to look at
is.
the amendments at the end of the
So-
yeah, okay.
Gotcha. I think you confused me, Councilmember Colcover.
So what about the sheds? Those have not been amended out.
So,
Correct,
well,
that would
hold
be an
on.
amendment, so that you'd have to amend our proposal to remove that amendment.
Okay, so
Okay,
we could
so
change this motion to say,
Would you do me a favor and withdraw this motion? And then you can make an amendment.
yeah, but don't erase it all, Dawn, because it's a lot more typing. And we'll amend ordinance O 2026-24 with section 16.06.060, page 2, line 24, I think it is, regarding tool sheds.
Okay. And then.
And now I'll need a second.
And now we need a second. So that will, okay, so the, and it's not to approve ordinance 2024-24, it's to
Amend.
amend to remove, I think the language went away.
Oh, okay. And to amend 2026-24, removing section 16.06.060, page 2, line 24, regarding tool sheds.
Okay. So that motion, the motion to amend has been made by Councilmember Christ to remove the,
Aren't we supposed to remove the sprinkler one?
no. So to keep, to remove the, to keep permit required for 200 square foot or greater? Correct. Page 2, line 24. And that was seconded by Councilmember Prieto. And
Crystal, later on, there's.
so there's,
Withholding
yeah,
the sprinklers.
yes. So, okay.
So they've already
No.
done that work for us.
Okay, and then it was Councilmember Prieto who seconded it. On this one?
On this one.
Yes. So,
I love it when we
Okay.
have these.
so,
These parliamentary moments.
yes, so this one is just to amend to get rid of the required permit, removing 16.06.060, page 2, line 24? Was that what it was? Okay, line 24. For the permit required for tool sheds and below 200 feet. Yep, and so the permit would be required for 200 feet or greater. Is that, okay. Going off memory here. Okay, now, Councilmember Prieto.
So now I'm supposed to make a motion, or?
No, we have an open motion. Is
Okay.
there something you wanted to
Comments?
speak?
Discussion about.
Yes,
To
of
speak
course.
to this motion?
No, I
To
think.
speak to this amendment only.
Okay. I just think that the heart of it comes from a place of like, not everybody has the tools and resources to go through the permitting process for small projects like these, especially like sheds, many times of which don't have like electricity hooked up, etc. And so my thought process was, allowing residents to put up place sets, sheds, things like that, without the costly burden and the timely burden that it takes to get the permits through the city. And so 200 worked fine before. I'm not sure that there was an issue that we saw via the city that would suggest that we needed to go down to 120. I think we're just following the state. I don't see this or anticipate this being an issue for developers as far as consistency in building across the state. And so I would ask my fellow council members to join me in on this one, so that way we can make sure that, all residents have access to the things that they need, and if they need to build something small on their property, they can, as long as it falls within the requirements.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Popkin.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Prieto, for raising this. I disagree with the approach here, and will be voting against this amendment. I think, while I understand where you're coming from on this, I do think that we are increasingly in a higher fire risk area. We are increasingly seeing more safety issues, and I wish I could say everyone built it to a certain standard from the beginning, and that's just not the case. And these kinds of small, whether it's a structural fire or an injury from a collapsing structure, these cause injuries and deaths and increase risk not only to an individual's property, but to their neighbors. And so I think that, code changes aren't taken lightly. They aren't proposed in a vacuum. And in this case, I don't really understand a policy reason other than making it a little bit easier for people to build something like this, for us to strip this, for us to not follow this, especially as we increasingly face drier, more drought-prone, and more fire risk conditions. So.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Marcin.
Thank you, Mayor. I hope everybody's having a great time out there as much as we are up here. It's a question for staff on this, and maybe a request as well, just to help us up here when this comes back on seconds. Having a council comm, I think, is helpful to help us kind of navigate some of these pieces. But generally, have we experienced? I know this is anecdotal. How often are we experiencing fires in sheds of these types, in these auxiliary kind of buildings of 200 feet or less? If you had to do a rough estimate on calls for service, how big of a problem are we talking about here that this seeks to address? I understand we're adopting a broader fire code, but how often are we dealing with this?
Yeah, I think
get it, it's broad,
it's ultimately a small number. I could pull those numbers and try to get those to you, but it would be a smaller number. But to speak to more of what Councilmember Popkin is talking about, we do have a lot of issues with the current state with increased awareness of fire. I think having a larger shed or a larger accessory unit on your property that could catch fire or could cause a hazard could increase the number of conflicts between neighbors.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That was my question, Chairman.
Councilmember Popkin, or not Popkin, no, just, I want you to speak again. Mayor Pro Tem.
Please, no. I'm joking. I'm kidding. Okay, I just want people to kind of have a perspective of what size shed is 200 square feet. That's about the size, the distance between me and our esteemed colleagues over here, and about as wide, a little bit smaller than the part of the dais here. I mean, that's a pretty good size. It's 10 by 20. And so most people are putting in something just to hold the mower or that sort of thing, not these other larger items. And I think what we're talking about is that when you wanted to start putting in a she shed, which that is what we're talking about, and you're going to be putting in probably electricity, or it could be a he shed. Okay,
Yeah,
just saying it.
very
Okay,
misogynistic.
okay, I'm just telling you, people, that is the size that we're looking at, and so I think that's why then it starts to the point of creating conflict with neighbors and other things like that. So and everything. So I think that we shouldn't mess with this, and I think that with a drought and a consistent drought that we've had, and more severe fire danger, and the topics that we're going to talk about for later tonight, I think this is reasonable.
Okay, so everybody has had a chance to speak except for Culkoffer, so he is next.
Very quick, thank you, Mayor. So if they put electrical or water, we still require a permit. This is just for a dry structure, not for something with electrical, correct?
Correct, yeah, no matter what size it is. If they put electrical to it, it's going to require a permit for the electrical. And also, regardless of the size, they still have to meet setback requirements as well.
Good call, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and vote. Okay, and so that carries 4-3 with council members Marcin, McCoy, and Popkin in opposition. I almost voted no. I was so, yeah. Okay, so we are now, thank you very much. We
Mayor,
are
I'm
now
sorry.
on to item 9. Oh,
Mayor,
wait,
we
do
need
we
to
have?
vote
Oh,
to
no, we
pass
have
as
to, actually, I
amended.
was ready to move to the next one. Let's go ahead and vote on item A3, ordinance 2026-24, as amended. And that has been made by Mayor, motion has been made by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Council Member. Okay. You did? Oh. Okay. Oh, you clicked, oh, I see it. Okay. Faster with her fingers. So that is, the item has been seconded by Councilmember Prieto. I see what you did. You pushed the screen.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm getting ready to build my shed.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Okay, that item carries unanimously. Thank you. And now we're on to item 9D. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So 90 is the resolution regarding the Front Range Passenger Rail District narrative. And I think what I'm waiting for is the feasibility study as one major issue. So I think we're not quite there yet to pass this. I feel like we have a lot of questions we're going to have to answer to the public at this time in terms of the money from fast tracks, and is that certainty, and what would the rate of tax rate be, an additional tax rate be on this proposal. So from my point of view, I would like to delay this and delay or table R 2026-28. Can I have a second for debate's sake?
Okay, so Councilmember Marcin.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Christ. I appreciate the intent of trying to govern with responsible data. I will say, I think of all the things that have been discussed in this state over the last 4 years since FRPR was created, and look, I have my own questions about Longmont's role, about the way, but I am confident. I mean, I just Googled FRPR feasibility study. There's a Northwest Rail Peak Service feasibility study. The CDOT's done feasibility studies, and we happen to have the head honcho here who can answer any of your specific questions related to the data that you're concerned about. I am confident that the modeling has been done appropriately, that we know. I mean, I believe the board of directors is fairly close on a conversation regarding ballot language, and that will become public when appropriate. I'm not in favor of tabling at this point. I think the data exists. We had a tremendous town hall here where a lot of that data was laid out, and I'm sure that if there are any specific questions, there are folks here who can answer them. I think we have. Longmont has waited 21 years to get a train. 22 years. I'm not interested in waiting a week to table this resolution. So thanks.
Great, thank you. I agree. I'm not at a space to table this. This is just the first of many resolutions that will be coming to us, and this is to also formalize our First and Main Station. We've heard a lot of support on this council that we wanted to move forward with our First and Main Station, our transit station. So this commits us, or it shows our support to moving forward with design, construction, operation, and maintenance of the passenger rail station. So that's, I will not be in favor of, can you put yourself back on? Thank you. Of tabling this at this time. Councilmember Popkin.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I wanted to address maybe what might be a potential misunderstanding here. There are two parts to this. Part one is the starter service, and that the money has been committed to from RTD. That's what the FISA, the Fast Track's internal savings account, is dedicated to. That's the $333 million. That's separate from this resolution. That's separate from the Front Range passenger rail, and separate from any other forthcoming ballot question that might come forward. So that's one piece of this. And to Councilmember Marsing's point, multiple feasibility studies have been done in multiple ways in multiple years on that piece. We're not this resolution is not committing us to more dollars. It's not committing us to support even Longmont paying any more dollars. This is supporting the broader concept of the Front Range passenger rail. If there's a ballot question, that is a voter decision at the end of the day, and that's to expand service, not to do the starter service. And so I think that distinction is critically important here. And to the mayor's point, it directly relates to the investment that we are making and have made in our First and Main transit station and the surrounding planning area. And so I think that tabling it doesn't make sense right now because this is a resolution that does not commit further dollars. There's no... We are indicating the step forward with this potential plan, and while there might be more details that emerge on what the ballot language might be, we're not voting on that right now. And so I think it's really important to just make sure we're thinking about the pieces that we're looking at. And as I think we all have seen over the last even just a few months, big projects happen in phases. And so I think that's the important thing to recognize is what phase are we at right now? Yes, there's a lot that hasn't been finished because it's not finalized language but that's not what we were here to discuss. And we're looking at, do we support the general direction and the part that Longmont plays in this broader Front Range passenger rail line? That's what's on the table with this resolution tonight. I would strongly encourage us to not have a ton more debate on this. We had a large discussion earlier on this. And I appreciate everyone sticking around for this conversation. Yes. It is a critically important conversation to have for our community. I feel like we have had it already tonight, and we've been discussing First and Main planning and rail planning for many, many months, if not years.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Chris, this is your second time, and I'll let you weigh in.
I'm just bringing it home.
Yes.
If I wasn't clear when I was discussing this with the presenters. My feasibility concern is from the accounting point of view. That was where during Fast Tracks, the accountants came out and said this doesn't look like it will be feasible economically. And so they now have accountants, and I want to see what they think the feasibility economically is for this. And we had one, I don't know if he's in the chamber any longer, but we had one constituent come and say, you know, he's skeptical because he's not sure. We don't know what the price is going to be. We don't know what the tax rate might be to support this for Longmont residents. But this will come up as the accountants do their work. Also, I just want to say that those are all valid questions, especially if we're looking forward with, you know, and I guess more completely what I should say is when we make these resolutions, it tells the public that we have vetted this information and that we are confident. And until I am confident, I'm not going to vote for this. But that's not to say I won't get there.
Thank you. Councilmember Marcin.
Thank you, Mayor, and I don't want to belabor it necessarily either, but just because we have expertise in the room, because the question is valid, and I appreciate the concern. Would it be appropriate to ask Mr. Pace to address Councilmember Chris' concerns about the accounting issue, or is that not something you're
Not right now.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on, and this is to table. Okay, and that fails 1 to 6 with me, Councilmember Marcin, Councilmember Prieto, Mayor Pro Tem McCoy, Councilmember Kalkofer, and Councilmember Popkin in opposition. Okay, so now we have a resolution.
I move.
So we have.
It's gonna get in there.
Yeah, I know. So we have Mayor Pro Tem who has moved Resolution 2026-28, and I see Marcin has seconded that. Okay. Yep, I know. So we've discussed this at nauseum. So let's go ahead and vote, please. Okay, and that carries 6 to 1 with Councilmember Christ in opposition. Okay, so now we are on to general business. Item 12A, annexation referral for Connection Church and request for City Council to refer the Connection Church annexation into the annexation review process. And we have Jennifer Hewitt-Apperson, planner, to present.
Yes, give me one moment while I locate everything. There we go. All right, good evening, Mayor Hidalgo Ferrin, members of the council. Jennifer Hewitt-Apperson, Principal Planner with the Planning and Development Services Department. I'm here regarding a requested annexation referral for Connection Church, specifically property located at 8979 Nelson Road. Since we do have a few council members who I don't think have been through an annexation referral before, I'm just going to give a quick overview of what that is. So we are not asking council to decide on the actual annexation of the property this evening. We are asking whether the council wishes to direct the applicant to make a full application for annexation. So annexation referral is a pretty unique application process to Longmont. It essentially you're being asked, you're being presented with information, basic information about the property, whether it meets the statutory the statutory regulations for annexation into the city, and basically whether or not you're willing to consider it at a future point in time. It's an extra step, but it's also an extra step that can ultimately save a lot of headache and time and expense for applicants if the council is not willing to consider it. But generally, the council in the past was probably a few exceptions, would direct the applicant to make a full application at that moment. So, just with that background information, again, this property is located at 8979 Nelson Road. It is roughly northeast of the intersection of Nelson and Anderson Street. It is immediately next to the Longmont storage area here, the Longmont storage property. It is unincorporated Boulder County. It's not an enclave on its own, but it is part of a larger enclave. The site is a little bit less than an acre. It is in a section of the planning area that is designated for mixed employment on the comprehensive plan, which would correspond with mixed use employment for a zoning district. Currently, it is an assembly use. It is occupied by Connection Church. No change in use is currently proposed. The motivation for this annexation is that the property owners at some point are looking to potentially sell the property, and the way our IGAs and agreements with Boulder County work is if it's in our planning area, they are going to encourage annexation, especially if the property doesn't meet the minimum standards for the county zoning district. So in terms of eligibility, this particular property is eligible for annexation. As I noted, it's within the Longmont planning area. It exceeds the 1/6 contiguity requirement.
Time's up. Let's vote.
So, state statute does require that a property seeking to annex into a municipality be have at least 1/6 of its perimeter adjacent to the municipal boundaries. In this case, 50% of the property is contiguous. This particular annexation is also consistent with Section 4G of our IGA with Boulder County, which basically says that the city of Longmont, it basically encourages the city of Longmont to annex properties within that planning area for a number of reasons. And I'll also note the use, the current use is consistent with our mixed employment and Vision Longmont land use category. It is not currently, there's no anticipated development or redevelopment of the site. It's anticipated that the site will continue to be used for assembly type uses, so that use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So just as a quick overview, this is the parcel here. This is the storage area. There is a current vehicular access here. It is, like I said, a little less than an acre, so it is not large enough for any significant development in the future. And then again, the contiguity is on the east and the south side. So with that, just an overview. If the council chooses to refer this to the full application process, the applicant would go through the standard DRC process. So there would be a pre-application meeting. Because annexations are considered major applications, there would be a neighborhood meeting that would be noticed through posted signs and mailed notice to all property owners within with a 1,000-foot radius of the property. At that point, they would be able to make an application for annexation, which would then be reviewed by members of the Development Review Committee. Annexation agreement would be drafted, recommendations would be made to Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council, who would then hold fully noticed public hearings. So, with all of that, staff does recommend that City Council refer 8979 Nelson Road, or also known as Connection Church, to the annexation process, finding that it does meet those initial criteria for annexation. And the applicant's representative, Ryan McBreen, is here to answer any questions that you may have of them as well.
Okay, and thank you for that brief little overview, introduction.
And the owner is here as well.
And the owner is here as well. So, yeah, and to remind, and every time it comes up, we always have somebody, and myself included, is, okay, this is a referral. So we're not, it's going to go through the process and come back, but this is just giving the thumbs up to go ahead and start the process.
Correct.
Council, I turned him off again. So Councilmember Marcin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a question for the applicant. I appreciate the presentation, Jennifer. I just am curious about the applicant's desire and why seek to go through the annexation process now? What they see as the benefit of joining the city, those sorts of things. Hi.
Thank you. Doug Hickson, pastor at Connection Church. We own the property. We have outgrown it. We've actually moved into another space and have no change in plans for us. But we would like to sell the property. Churches are able to be in any zone, minus a couple like hospital zone or something like that. So it's currently zoned as agricultural. And so for us to sell it, unless another church or school bought it, it has to be annexed into the city so that the zoning change could be made. And I'm not a lawyer, I'm a legal expert, but that's what I've been told.
You're an expert on the laws of Genesis, not necessarily.
There you go.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Pastor. So there's a financial gain potentially down the road, theoretically, for the congregation, just in terms of the annexation. It's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate that. Okay. I guess my question then is, so where's your congregation meeting now if you're not in the building? currently? You are. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, sorry. That's my question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, another church is leasing the building from us. We still own the property, and so
Okay.
it is still being used as a church property. That change is not, no changes in that way has been made.
Yeah.
We meet now at 105 Sunset, South Sunset,
Okay.
In a commercial space.
Okay.
That we've renovated.
Okay. How long has that been in place?
Easter Sunday.
Oh, okay. I thought it was fairly, because in my research you still had,
Yes,
the Google images were still of connection in
sir.
that space.
Yes, sir.
So,
Very, very
how many members roughly in your congregation? Just
we
out of-
run about 100.
Okay, that's a good size for a church your size. Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay. Full disclosure, Connection Church does provide our school with some breakfast sometimes and flowers. So I'm at Indian Peaks and we're greatly appreciative. Does that mean I have to recuse myself? Yeah, yes, my bias. So I think we're good. So, but seeing no one else in the queue, can we have a motion to refer for annexation? Okay, so Councilmember Prieto has moved to refer this property for annexation. I'm trying to get back on my main screen. And do we have a second? And Councilmember Popkin has seconded that. Okay, seeing no one else in the queue, let's go ahead and vote. Okay, and that carries 6-1 with Councilmember Marcin in opposition. Okay, and we are now on to item B, 12B, the 2026-2027 Longmont Water Supply and Water Storage Implementation. And we have Wes Lowry. Did I say that right? Lowry? No. Oh, I did. Okay. Acting Water Resources Manager, and Chris Huffer, Director of Water and Waste. Thank you. Go ahead, I will hand this over to you.
There we go. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I'm Wes Lowry, Acting Water Resource Manager for Longmont. Before I begin, I want to say that out of respect of your time during this very full agenda, I'll be reading my slide notes as to ensure that I quickly and thoroughly cover the topics important to this item and hopefully address most, if not all, of the questions you and the listening public may have. City Council is being asked tonight to approve the 2026-2027 Water Supply and Water Storage Implementation Plan and additionally implement a mild drought response as outlined in that plan. To help support that recommendation, I would like to share with you Longmont's current water supply conditions. As mentioned during previous presentation to Council in March, Longmont receives water from multiple sources, and as such, we pay close attention to the snowpack in their respective basins. This graph, which represents snowpack in the Colorado headwaters, shows that unfortunately, since the last time we talked, snowpack has decreased significantly when normally we would have increased. Peak snowpack for this area normally occurs on April 12th, whereas this year That peak occurred on March 17th, nearly 5 weeks early. Similarly, snowpack for the South Platte Basin, which normally peaks on April 25th, peaked approximately 5 weeks early on March 17th. The snow water equivalent currently for the South Platte Basin is 16% of average we would normally see at this time of year. Snow water equivalent in the St. Vrain Basin snowpack is slightly better, but still only at 23% of average for this time of year. These percentages represent a combination of data sources collected from snow pillow readings, physical snow core samples, and airborne snow observation surveys. Water storage and area reservoirs are generally below average for this time of year, and we are expecting them to remain below average in the months to come, as runoff will likely go almost entirely to satisfy direct flow demands. The past few recent precipitation events have had a definite positive impact on available water. Longmont has and will continue to make a concerted effort to capture as much of this runoff into storage as possible. Focus continues to be on storing available water rights in Ralph Price Reservoir, which is Longmont's primary drinking water supply source, with secondary emphasis on plains reservoirs such as Lake McIntosh and Union Reservoir. Although these past storms have helped, it is still unlikely that most local reservoirs will fill this year.
Wow.
This most recent map provided by the USDA shows the incredible drought conditions for which Colorado is now experiencing. Longmont and Boulder County are feeling the effects of what is being classified as an extreme drought. On a daily basis, water resource staff evaluates and utilizes many different data sources and models for the management of its water supplies. As such, we are finding that current storage supplies and stream flow forecasts are suggesting below average conditions. Because of these factors, important trigger points are suggesting that a mild drought level response is currently warranted. Longmont continues to deliberately use a strategic and logistical approach over a reactionary approach with respect to its water planning. This plan presented to Council tonight reflects these principles and provides direction to both the city and its customers regarding how to respond to the conditions we are now experiencing. It is also worth emphasizing that because Longmont's drought plan reflects withstanding droughts of longer and greater intensity when compared to other water providers in the region, it does not require Longmont to enact as stringent of regulations such as mandatory watering restrictions at this time. Longmont's current plan follows previously developed planning efforts and serves as a guide for responding to existing conditions. Available water supplies can vary significantly from year to year. For example, the amount of projected available water in 2026 is approximately 17% less than that in 2025, which is a direct result of anticipated lower stream flows due to previously mentioned lower snowpack conditions. This fact further emphasizes the importance of long-range planning for times such as these. As many of you know, Longmont's drought plan prepares for a 1 in 100-year drought that is 7 years in duration. We are currently in the second year of that scenario, and conditions suggest moving from the current sustainable conservation response level to a mild impact response level. One of the most important factors in any drought plan is understanding how much water will be available to meet demands. For Longmont, total water supply availability to specifically meet treated water demands includes factors such as expected native basin direct flow supplies, available trans-basin water supplies, and reservoir storage. This graph shows that since 2002, when Longmont developed its first drought plan, that although total service population has continued to increase, our total water treatment plant production has remained relatively constant over that same time period. Water Resources staff continues to have meaningful conversations internally with communications, parks, golf, and open space staff regarding improving their water efficiencies and reducing their overall water use. Staff is also continuing to provide public information and water savings resources for its customers and ratepayers. These efforts include both indoor and outdoor water conservation strategies. Recognizing that outdoor water use represents a significant portion of Longmont's overall water use, the city, for example, is offering free irrigation assessments through its partnership with Resource Central, a local nonprofit conservation organization. We encourage customers to visit Longmont's Water Conservation webpage, where they can find additional information about these types of programs, as well as other water conservation-related information. With that, staff is here to answer any further questions you may have. And again, we are asking council to accept the 2026-2027 Water Supply and Water Shortage Implementation Plan as presented and recommend implementation of its mild drought response action plan elements. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Popkin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll kick things off. Thank you, Wes, as always, both for the thoughtful presentation, all of the work that went into this, and for the email responses as well, very promptly today. Just to make sure that I and others are understanding kind of where we are. So the recommendation is for a mild drought response. The map you showed before of the state suggests we're in an extreme drought, and we're at like the tail lowest end of the snowpack. And so I'm trying to reconcile with all the different adjectives that are used by different entities. And so is it fair to say first that a mild, like how we define mild, moderate, and severe is different from how other entities may define moderate, severe, extreme, etc.?
That would be absolutely correct.
Okay, and it seems like from what you were describing, we take a longer term view to drought planning in perhaps a less reactionary way. Could you elaborate on what that really means when we the 1 in 100 over 7 years? What does that actually mean in plain language?
Absolutely. So Longmont has always taken a conservative approach to its water supply. We've prepared for a more severe drought of more severe intensity than most other communities. Most other surrounding water providers plan for something less than a 100-year type drought event, or for a time period of drought less than 7 years. So with that, our response to the current situation is different than theirs. Other communities may have to respond more aggressively than Longmont would, because they may only be planning for 3 or 5 year drought. And so we're following our plan, which it has a design drought, which looks at 7 very specific years from the past. And interestingly enough, we've been tracking on really, really close with that design drought for these first 2 years. So Water Resources staff definitely feels very comfortable with this mild drought declaration.
Okay, so it's and just to be clear, it's a mild drought response or a mild drought?
It's a mild drought response declaration.
Okay. And so if people are hearing about and reading about Denver and Boulder and Erie and other communities implementing certain restrictions on residential commercial water use, their stringency there is partly a reactive situation or a difference in approach fundamentally in how we define kind of drought response.
Exactly. And so, and other communities may categorize their drought response as a level 1, 2, or 3 or whatever. I think the important aspect with the mild drought declaration response being suggested by us and Water Board is one that puts Longmont as the example of what we're looking to do, and that's to conserve not less than 10%. And we're hoping that the customers of Longmont will follow suit through voluntary water reductions.
Right. So the only required change right now is on the city's side, is from the municipal side of things.
Yes.
It is voluntary restrictions or voluntary reductions from the public and private sector as well at this stage, correct?
That is correct.
And is this I think this is the first time I'm going through kind of a drought declaration or a reaction here. Is that something that, like, in July you might come back and say, you know what, it's 10 times worse than we actually thought? Or is this because we're taking a longer term look at this in general, like you would expect throughout this whole year will be in the mild drought response?
So although we certainly could come back, as you may note in in the communication, the drought year that we're talking about runs from November 1st through October 31st. So we've essentially went through 8 of the 12 months of our water year. So we're really looking for the following 4 months, which is our highest water use months. I would say, though, to answer that more directly, I'm not anticipating coming back in the near future to change our drought declaration.
Great. And one of the questions I get from residents a lot, and just, I've observed, is related to kind of the use of water on private turf and lawns, particularly in kind of larger complexes, apartment buildings, multifamily structures. One of the implementation strategies under the mild drought conditions is a voluntary reduction in turf and lawn watering. Have we seen a particular increase in private turf and lawn with the increase of apartments and multifamily building construction in the last 5 years? Because it seems like they're running sprinklers quite a bit and maybe started fairly early in the season, but perception isn't always reality. And so I just wanted to fact check that.
Yeah, I don't know that we've went so far as to look specifically at individual customers and what their water use is. We have the ability through AMR technology to understand changes in water consumption, which may be related to leaks. It could be rated for a number of different factors, but my belief is that from the global perspective of total water use, and being that our per capita use has decreased, I don't believe we're seeing an increase in lawn irrigation use over the last several years.
Great, thanks, Wes. The last thing I'll just note, for anyone who's watching or stuck around this evening, just a reminder, you can learn about your voluntary water conservation actions and various other programs that the city offers at longmontcolorado.gov/water/water conservation.
Thank you.
There's your PSA for tonight.
Okay. Councilmember Marcin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be fairly quick. Appreciate the presentation, appreciate the work you did, and appreciate you answering an email for me after Water Board adopted these initial recommendations. And the question that I had via email that I just want to follow up on, and maybe just simply re-ask, I think when people, to Councilmember Popkins' original point, when people see the nature of the drought that we're potentially facing, forecast for the summer, maybe we'll get some more moisture, we'll see, but and then they see a mild drought response and voluntary restrictions. I think there are questions that folks have. Can you speak a little bit about why the restrictions, specifically on the resident side in the mild plan, in the mild drought response, are voluntary as opposed to mandatory restrictions? Is that a staff capacity issue on enforcement? What's the logic there?
I think there's a couple things that go into that. I think the city is one of the larger water users. We have multiple golf courses, parks, open spaces that use water, and we're going to, by requiring us to reduce by 10%, we're expecting to see a certain amount of savings. I think also that we learned some lessons in 2002 and 2003 when we had our first drought response, and we learned that enforcement of restrictions was very taxing on city resources. It also caused neighbors to really that had concerns to address those a lot, so it really overwhelmed our call center. A lot of logistical things happened. So those lessons learned we didn't take lightly when we made a decision that part of our tiering structure would be to first have requirements for city properties and voluntary restrictions for residents before we go to the next level, which would be mandatory watering restrictions.
I appreciate that, and I didn't mean to laugh at your answer to the question. I'm just visualizing the conversations that happen among neighbors when, one neighbor's maybe watering a little more than the restrictions would lay out. Is there a risk that we're not being aggressive enough? Is there a risk that we are not, in my thinking about the 7-year planning, in my mind I've thought, boy, that's great. We're planned out for 7 years. We've got a plan in place. Is there a risk that the 7-year structure creates a little bit more of a, and I'm not saying, I don't intend this personally or anything, a little bit more of maybe a passive approach to water management generally, when maybe this moment does call on us to be a bit more aggressive? Just asking an opinion on that.
Yeah, I believe that this is an appropriate action or response to take at this time for many different reasons. Working with water resources for over 30 years, I feel very strong about the planning that we've done. I know that our staff pays very close attention to our water use on a daily and monthly basis. If we don't realize the savings that we're expecting in terms of reduced water use, I believe we have more than sufficient resources, water resources, to meet those demands. This may sound a little weird, but we're not really as concerned about having enough water for this year or even next year. We're really thinking long term about, might we have enough water for 2, 3, 4 years out? But with that timeline also comes with the uncertainty of other snowpack. And so I think there's variables that are out of our control that are important, but I don't believe we're being too reserved in our planning by having only a mild drought declaration at this time.
I'm not going to ask you to be the weather forecaster, but roughly, just based on the evidence, because I can't do math in my head, I still count on my fingers. How many inches of precipitation roughly would we need this summer to be able to reassess? Like, what's the best case scenario here? How far behind are we? In real terms?
There's really not a great answer for that, in that it all comes up, it has to do with timing. I mean, I don't want to see us have another September 13 flood, and that would be way more water than we would need. It's just a matter of getting, if we could have well-timed rain events that could be small. Generally, we would expect to receive around 14 inches of moisture in this area a year. But again, it's really important about the timing.
Okay. And then I have a motion, Mayor. I move to extend the meeting beyond 11 o'clock.
Okay, so the motion has been made to extend the meeting and by Councilmember Marcin and seconded by Councilmember Popkin. Yes. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. We haven't finished. So you can enter in debate. Yeah.
It's not debate, but it's a statement of what's next on our agenda, and that is a citizen-led effort. And so if you want, like, I know sometimes we joke around with extending the meeting, but sometimes we've come close to not extending the meeting.
Yeah.
And if we think we can't have a productive conversation next, we shouldn't. But if we're going to respect that and time, I would encourage us to vote procedurally to extend the meeting.
Councilmember Marcin.
Thank you, Mayor. I also will just acknowledge that in terms of wrapping up this really critical conversation, and maybe we could do it in 3 minutes. I don't know that we've done much in 3 minutes in this body. I would urge us to make sure, considering the nature of the situation that we're in, that we don't push this to our next regular session, which is what this would probably do.
Yeah, so this is where it comes down to, that we need to make sure our comments are focused and brief, that we're not reiterating, just because the constant carrying on past 11 o'clock is, it's really not necessary. And we, all of us work. So I do want to think about that as well. Councilmember Kalkofer.
This is the first time I'm going to vote no to extend the meeting. My wife is out of town and my kids are home, and I have a babysitter that I need to go to, so that's why I'm voting no.
Okay. So. Okay. So let's go ahead and, did everyone get a chance to vote? Yes. Okay. Okay, and so voting to extend the meeting has failed, 5-2 with council members Marcin and Popkin. I'm sorry, myself, Councilmember Christ, Councilmember Prieto, Councilmember McCoy, and Councilmember Kalkofer in opposition. And it's really also too, because the next item, I want to make sure that we give it the due diligence to have this discussion, and after 11 o'clock we are not. And I apologize. I really apologize that it carried on this long. And thank you. We can go ahead. Councilmember Chris, if you wanted to make a motion?
Yes, I move that we adopt the 2026-2027 Longmont Water Supply and Water Shortage Implementation Plan.
Second. Oh, okay, so that's been, motion has been made by Councilmember Chris, seconded by myself. And let's go ahead and vote. Okay, and, yep. And that carries. So we are, yep, coming in at, I see 11 o'clock, so we are adjourned.
Thank you, water guys.
Mhm.
Thank you.